Wow, I guess we're Star Wars collectors now.
Long ago, in a galaxy far, far away,
Star Wars toys
began, and Kenner continues the excitement.
The Empire Strikes Back collection.
El regreso del Jedi.
Welcome to the Star Wars Collectors Archive podcast. It's Chive Cast.
for Death Star Space Station, the snap-open space hatch.
Sometimes known as the Vintage Pod.
Wow, what a weird place.
A monthly audio magazine dedicated to vintage Star Wars toys and memorabilia. Hosted by Skye Fud,
Chewbacca's lit too.
and Stephen B. Denley.
B-Wing fighters and B-Wing pilot action. B-Wing pilot action. B-Wing pilot action. B-Wing pilot action.
Market data mined by Brisbane Mike.
Luke Skywalker handles his saber well.
And Fratastic Pete.
Boba Fett has a see-through helmet.
Tech support by the Low Ones.
Princess Leia.
FX-7. X-Wing Ace. Lando Calrissian. Teacher for Viper Scout. R5-D4. Greedo the Emperor.
And Princess Lisa, each sold separately from Kenner's Star Wars Return of the Jedi.
Leia Boushh is the figure of the month, and we talk about her language and representation in toy form. Skye and Steve put forth the vintage winners and losers from Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, anthology film, A Star Wars Story. The Lhemkuhl brothers, Sean and Ryan, join us to talk about their experiences collecting as a team and finding prototypes in the Will Grief Wild. All this, plus info on the third archive party on the 79th Chive Cast. EP Cribs? Steve, this is a first.
Yeah.
We are talking before we actually start the episode. Now, I've recorded tons of times before we record the episode.
Yeah.
And it's just like a little thing I get to do because I'm editing.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is that we recorded this episode December 20th.
Yeah.
And I've had a nonstop cavalcade of family. My brother Amos came to visit with his family. My brother Ward came to visit. I went on a little trip with my lady friend, so I've just had no time to edit the podcast. And so it's weird because the figure of the month is Leia Boushh, and in between recording and releasing, Carrie Fisher died. So I thought I'd call you, Steve.
No, it's good. And I thought about the same thing. I was hoping maybe something like this could happen. So and I'm glad you did.
Well, I actually just called Steve and left a really depressing message for 2 minutes, and I threatened to put it on the podcast unedited, but that was just too sad. But before we really talk about Leia Boushh, let's talk a little bit about Carrie Fisher. We don't, that's not the kind of show that we are. We try not to be like human beings with feelings, but obviously we don't succeed very much.
No, not too much.
So yeah, I don't know. The thing I was thinking about. One of the main things is that she really is kind of underestimated, I think, as an actress, at least in the Star Wars movies.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And I just thought of something recently. I just saw Rogue One again for the fourth time this morning.
Nice.
This afternoon. And I heard someone else discuss the idea that Mendelsohn's character slips in and out of his Australian accent.
Uh-huh.
And they put forth that it was actually intentional. Because whenever he has his Australian accent, it's when his guard is down. And whenever he has his British accent, he's trying to sound like official.
Yeah.
So Princess Leia's mistakes in Episode 4 actually work. Because when she's speaking in that British accent, she's talking to Tarkin.
That formal situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's funny.
So I just thought she was a really great actress. And then, I've... had a lot of fights with mental illness, or at least people with mental illness in my life, and it's pretty amazing what she was able to do there. And sort of on a personal note, this sort of weird thing happened where the way that she passed is kind of similar to the way my mom passed. It was a traumatic event, and then basically losing all consciousness, and then on a ventilator long enough for the family to come and say goodbye, and then bye-bye time. So that made me realize something, which was that Princess Leia, for me, is more of a mother figure and has never been an object of desire.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Do you feel the same way, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, you'd mentioned this just in your message, and it's just crazy how much it was similar to the way I've always thought of her, and it's funny, it relates to a story that I'd meant to tell when we were recording back on the 20th, but we just kind of, we were on a roll, and I forgot to.
Well, Steve, your story is going to be more interesting than what I'm going to say. So let's tease it. Let's slog through my ramblings and then get to your interesting story. How does that sound?
Sure. And they're not ramblings.
Well, my main point is that like Leia in the metal bikini or whatever has never done anything for me. And I don't know why. I know she's pretty.
Yeah.
And she's not wearing any clothes, so that should do it. But I think it's because I'm relatively young that I think I've just sort of seen Princess Leia as kind of a maternal figure.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny. That's exactly like how, when you mentioned that, like, yeah, that's really kind of the same way I've always viewed her too. But yeah, so I mean, do you want me to tell the story now?
No, I'm not done yet, Steve. I'm not done yet, Steve. Going. See, this is how you really. This is radio gold here, Steve.
Yeah.
The other bit is that I also realized that Daisy Ridley, even though she's obviously very attractive, doesn't do it for me either because I just associate her with my daughter. It's like
that weird generational timing.
Yeah, the weird kind of timing of it. I wonder if some of our fans feel the same way. I know a lot of people wrote, R.I.P. You were my first love. You taught me what it was to be a man. All that stuff, and like people would post pictures of her in her bikini thing. I would get upset. I would be like, hey, like show some respect,
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is weird kind of psychological stuff, and obviously it's really super duper male centric. So I apologize for females out there because obviously the characters are great on their own. They do not have to relate to me in the way that I perceive female characters in my life.
Right.
But I can only help my own perspective. So I think that's been enough of a preamble, Steve. What is your amazing, awesome, greatest story of all time about Leia Boushh?
That's well, it's not like that, but it does connect to what you're saying. And I posted about this just personally when this happened, but I meant to bring it up last when we recorded. But one of my earliest Star Wars memories really relates to Leia, Boushh, and it was the scene whenever I would watch Return of the Jedi as a kid, like very young. Whenever I got to the point where she would free Han Solo from the carbonite, I would press pause on the VCR and go find my mom and ask her to act out the rest of the scene with me as Han Solo and her as Leia. So I would just pause the machine, be standing there frozen next to the TV, and it related to this thing that our VCR had the exact same kind of flashing light pattern as the carbonite block. And so I picked up on that, and we would act out this scene all the time, and we'd do the whole thing, and we'd end with the line about who are you, and someone who loves you, and it was this very like maternal thing, and I loved it, and it always stuck with me that way, and I don't know if that kind of was where my view on her has always come from, where I've never looked at her the other way. It's just been more of this kind of maternal respect. And it was just a sweet thing that
Steve, if our listeners are not crying in their car right now, that is the sweetest thing. You pausing it and running and getting and read. I didn't read that when you wrote that, Steve. So I'm happy to hear it now. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's just kind of a weird sidetrack. Obviously, the sad thing is that there's a human being and
no. I mean, it's just incredibly sad. And then with her mom the next day, it's just like unbelievably sad.
To me, that doesn't get me as much because it's like grandparents. That's what happens. It's sad, but it's part of life. But whereas, anyway, I'm not gonna get bitter about that. But anyway, so there's kind of a weird downer beginning to our show, but this is a pretty major moment in Star Wars fandom because.
But I think just trying to look at it positively as much as we can. I mean, I take that. I mean, I'll always remember that as a very, very positive thing, and if it wasn't for the way that whole thing went down, I don't know. It's just interesting how it can affect people.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Well, I will now forever, whenever I see that scene, think of you and your mom. So, and I think everybody else will, which is great. So anyway, Steve, this will be kind of cool because we're going to I'm going to hit stop, and then when I hit stop, we're just going to say Wampa Wampa and go into the regular episode.
Sounds good, man.
So, R.I.P. Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, and wait, we can't end this. I just have to hit stop, and then it has to go into Wampa Wampa. Okay, Steve?
Okay.
So I'm just Wampa Wampa.
Welcome to Chive Cast 79.
79, like the 79 back, Steve.
Yes. Not quite there yet, right?
No, we're on the third of the 65 backs.
Yeah, still got a ways to go.
Anyway, this is one of those months where I'm going to try to introduce us like we never do. So, I'm one of your hosts, Skye Payne, and with me from California, I'm not in California, I'm in Rochester, but somebody who is in California is Steve.
Yes.
So, hi, Steve.
Hey, Skye. How's Rochester?
We went sledding today. Oh man. It was great.
That sounds fun.
Well, see, it snows and then it gets super cold afterwards, so the snow got really slick and icy. And we have a creek in the backyard, and if we didn't fall off, we would fall into the creek. And my dog, Bo, is a complete psycho, and he just bites your sleds. Eventually, he bit my arms. I had to take him in. But
that's funny.
Yeah, so I think last month's episode was fun. I think it's good that we're trying to keep it a little bit toiter,
Yes, yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. So I'll do my best to help with that.
Well, I mean, I think it's okay if we go on tangents and stuff. I think it's more just not biting off more than we can chew.
Right.
So instead of having like 8 guests, we just sort of have 2.
Right.
So we're going to be hearing from Sean and Ryan Lehmkuhl later in the episode. I was actually on the elliptical today at the YMCA where I go 3 times a week. And it was around 9:30, and I got a text. It was like, "Where are you?" And it was Sean, and I was like, "Oh no, PM." We don't record these things at 6:30 a.m. in California. That would be
no. Except for that one time when we were going to the UK. Remember that?
Oh yeah, there's some kind of mess. So yeah, what's our figure of the month, Steve?
So it's Leia in a certain bounty hunter disguise, and I was just curious, before I say how I have always pronounced her name or his name, how do you pronounce the pseudonym?
Well, I've always said Boushh.
Okay.
And ever since Jimmy Mack, even before Jimmy Mack was on the Force Cast, they used to always make a huge joke about the read-along storybook LP that you used to listen to, and they would call a bounty hunter named Boushh. And so ever since I became a fan of theirs 13 years ago or whatever, or 11 years ago, I've always said a Boushh. How about you, Steve?
I think I kind of started with Boushh, and then at some point I switched to Boushh, and now I'm not really sure anymore.
Boushh.
I don't know.
Well, I just learned something this month, Steve.
What's that?
Boushh is spelled Boushh.
Right.
I thought it was Bousssh. I mean, forever.
I
trademark is
there was
stupidity.
multiples of something in there, but yeah, that's funny.
Oh man! Speaking of the Force Cast, were you up on the whole Rebel Force Radio scandal that happened last month?
Only somewhat.
Well, I wanted to address it. I didn't want to.
Right.
Okay, basically, if you listen to those guys talk, you can actually tell, if you listen to a lot of Rush Limbaugh, and I've listened to a lot of Rush Limbaugh, you can tell that one of the hosts, his main influence is Rush Limbaugh, right?
Yeah, right.
And Rush Limbaugh's a great broadcaster, just amazing, right? I don't agree with anything he says, but he's a great broadcaster.
You're just talking about the form, not the content.
Right. And so they ended up talking about something. We don't even really need to go into it. But they ended up taking a pretty heavy, sort of like right-wing view, very kind of Trumpy speech.
Yeah.
And there's a huge backlash. And I think, Steve, you and I deserve credit, because even though it's very clear that we are on a certain side of the political spectrum, I'm pretty sure we don't infuse our show with it.
I hope not. I don't think so. But,
I mean, if you follow us on Facebook, you know you're not seeing tons of Pepe the Frog on Steve's feed.
That's true.
But anyway, it's just something that we try to do, and it may be harder, it may be easier.
Yeah.
But we are going to remain apolitical. We welcome fans of Trump, and we welcome fans of Bernie, and we welcome everybody because you actually don't have to believe what we believe to collect Star Wars toys.
I say exactly. It's about Star Wars and the toys. So let's keep it that way, right?
Should I edit that all out, Steve? Nah, it's okay.
I want to say go leave it in, man. Leave it in.
Yeah. So we're talking about Boushh.
Yes.
And Steve, I actually had some time to prepare today.
Oh, good.
Which is pretty exciting because I don't usually have time to prepare.
Winter break, right? So you don't have to worry about the meddling kids.
Yeah, because my life is a series of Scooby Doo's.
Yeah, it is.
Who's going to record the podcast? Okay. So here's my movie thought about Boushh. Okay. So I am going to read you every single line of dialogue from Boushh. Are you ready?
Yeah, all right.
Okay. Yate, yoto, yoto, yato, cha. So that's always bugged me.
Yeah, that is so true.
I mean, Ben Burt is obviously truly a genius of sound, and we're going to talk about Rogue One a lot, right? We're going to talk about that. That's going to be one of the main things we talk about in this episode.
Yeah. And
a lot of people are just spilling hyperbole all over the place, saying it's one of the best Star Wars movies of all times. One of the main things it doesn't have is, like, Ben Burt just, like, inventing, like, all these crazy sounds and languages and all this kinds of crazy skill. Yeah. If you watch the scene between Boushh, Leia's Boushh, and Jabba, it's like Jabba's best work. That's where he got Iwanki Chewbacca.
Oh, yeah.
Chong Wookie, all that stuff. And yet, there's like only 6 words in all of Boush's language. And anyway,
it's like I'm wondering if it's like they're going with the like Sergio Leone, Clint Eastwood thing, like just straight up like 3-word sentences. That's it.
Except if you follow it, Yoto means 50,000.
Yoto.
And Yoto means I'm holding a thermal detonator.
Yoto.
50,000.
Yoto.
I'm holding a thermal detonator.
Yoto.
50,000.
Yoto.
I'm holding a thermal detonator. The Boushh.
Yoto.
The Boushh.
Yoto.
The Boushh.
Yoto.
Boushh.
Yoto.
The Boushh.
Yoto.
Yoto.
Yes. It means many things.
So I was wondering if it was like a Chinese thing, like the intonation means different things. I do think it was just to make it seem more mysterious. But it's kind of like that scene in Attack of the Clones. I hate to talk about prequels. I'm sorry, Steve.
Oh, God.
But there's a scene where Padme touches the same button 2 times in a row, and it does completely different things.
Yes.
And it's like there's so many buttons on that ship. Why? Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, I see what you're getting at. It's funny you mention the dialogue because I do have a sort of script flip thing if you want to go into it.
Sure.
Kind of ties in. Okay.
It's getting really, really hot in here.
Flip the script.
So, I unfortunately didn't have a chance to really get into the actual screenplay for this one, but I was going back to my backup, which is that annotated screenplays book, and he actually goes into a bit about the whole development of Leia's disguise character, which I thought was kind of neat, especially given what you just kind of pointed out was that she really doesn't say much in her native language at all.
Right.
So Richard Marquand was the one that came up with the idea that both Leia and Lando would arrive at the palace in disguise, and he specifically thought that Leia should be dressed as a bounty hunter, but said that the audience should know right off the bat who she is. But it was Kasdan who said no, like keep it, it's pretty obvious, but keep it a secret to the story until later. And it was Lucas who came up with the idea that she would have that mechanical voice in an alien language. Now, whether or not he specified she would only utter 5 words, I don't know. But
and then there's this whole confusing thing where she doesn't understand Huttese.
Yes, right. So I was gonna say, like in this, it's her very basic, I guess, language is Ubies.
Right.
That's how it's described. Yeah.
But Jabba the Hutt understands Ubies, but she does not understand Huttese.
Right.
And
right.
it's all just kind of linguistically all messed up. Now, if it's a 65 back, Steve, that means that it was released before the movie came out, right?
Yes, you're right. So I mean, the card back image just has the helmet on, but it is clearly labeled Princess Leia Organa with Boushh disguise in parentheses, right? That's
right. And the helmet is not on the head.
No, it's packaged separately.
Now, I think that's the first instance, right, where we have a helmet packed separately from from the toy. And there's not that many Star Wars toys like that. So that's one way that Boushh is an interesting figure.
Yes.
I definitely have never owned this figure, or I've never owned the helmet.
Oh, really?
Oh, dear God, I have no idea where it is. I mean, I'm sure I had it at one point, which is a bummer because that was one of my favorite. I mean, I loved the Boushh outfit. I thought it was just great.
It's a great design for a character, and it's just funny. So, did you have one of those in your childhood collection, like from your brothers, or was that something that?
No, it would have been for me during my thing, but
okay. Because you were all Jedi characters,
but
right?
the helmet is just gone. Just forget.
Long gone.
Yeah.
Long gone. Yeah. Okay. Just one other kind of interesting side note to this, which I think you'd appreciate. So in that whole scene when they're introducing the characters again, Lucas wanted to try and develop the bond between 3PO and Chewie some more, and one of his ideas was for Chewie to be tortured. To kind of make 3PO a little more empathetic towards him,
really?
Which I just thought was really, really interesting, given our past discussions on the whole 3PO and Chewie relationship.
Yeah,
that would have been crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, we can move on.
Yeah, although I do think, Steve, we need to breathe a little bit here. I mean, I know we're trying to stay tight, but shouldn't stay too tight.
No, that wouldn't be us. Right?
All right. Well, Steve, I do have some Skye coups.
Aha.
But I think maybe it'd be good to integrate the news a little bit into things.
News from the stars. Watch out!
It's Kenner's News. It's Kenner's News. It's Kenner's News.
Here's the news. It's Kenner's News.
Okay, sure.
There's not a ton of news. I will say that Millennial Skye has been very active.
You have been very active and very successful, if I might add. I mean, you're like a pro now.
Well, I've really jumped into the whole Facebook thing. So if you are not following us on Facebook, you are going to miss out on me doing videos. I'm going to get Steve to start doing videos too.
Oh God. Oh no.
So I did a Facebook Live video. I did it for, fittingly enough, Jabba's Court, which is one of these groups. One of the themes of this month's episode is, who the hell are these guys? Okay? So we're like these old collector dudes, and we're like, who the hell are these guys? What the hell is Jabba's dungeon or court or commissary? Who are all these people?
Right.
And I just sort of follow the idea that just find out. Next month we're going to be actually talking to the people from the Imperial Commissary. Who are number one in the list of who the hell are these people? As far as I'm concerned, there's all these collectors, and Facebook, basically things have become so democratized and decentralized that people can collect and be super duper hardcore vintage collectors and not know half of the other super duper hardcore vintage collectors.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's pretty crazy when you really step back and look at it how it is now. But I'm glad you're kind of it's not like you're extending olive branches, but you're just trying to make connections. So I think that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is that that they asked me to do this thing on Jabba's Court, and I was like, sure, I'll talk for an hour. And I talked about the podcast. I talked about
you
my
were
collection.
a little too nice to me. I think I don't know.
Was I?
That was a little over.
Okay, well, people have to go back and listen. I don't remember being nice to you, so I must not have been that nice.
Maybe it was the usual mix.
Yeah.
That's good.
And also, I've really been trying to keep up on the collectible of the week thing. So So I posted on. What did you think of that, Steve? I posted a Facebook Live video on the Chive Cast page.
Yes.
Is that too presumptuous of me?
I think in this day and age, no. I don't think so. If this was like when we were first starting, and I don't know, I feel like now it's like a standard in terms of communication, and especially when you have like your collection all right there, kind of in your environment. I think it was really, really cool for people to see. I mean, I haven't even seen it yet, so it's like it was nice for me anyway to kind of get you in your natural habitat.
Yeah. Well, it was really fun, and I think we're going to do more stuff like that. I think I'll probably just randomly show items from my collection and talk about them because Steve, our podcast gets like 1/5 of the views as videos do. I mean, it's just a fact. Like people really like these videos, and so we might as well bring them to them.
Sure.
And then it's just been this really fun kind of social media effort. Okay, Steve, now that I've jumped out for literally 5 minutes to talk about news, maybe we should go back to Boushh.
Okay.
So I have two Skykus. One is about the figure and about the way I feel about the mask. It's very poetic. You ready?
All right.
Wide-eyed visor hangs above sunset's horizon, orange mandible. So that's the image of the helmet being like a sunset, with the sun being also like a mandible. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the next one, Steve. This is about the character. E yoto yoto. Yate yate yoto Boushh. Yoto yoto cha. Translated from Ubis, that says, many different words, Boushh speaks with multiple tongues, thesaurus bounty.
Well done.
That's my first foreign language.
You're breaking ground. Willing.
Oh, and actually, speaking of all the Facebooky stuff too, I put up another episode, another enhanced episode,
a special edition,
special edition.
So what? The Chewy episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, because the thing was, I've been trying to follow the collectibles of the week on Facebook, because there's lots of good stuff, and I happened to get, Steve, the piece that I have been waiting to get the most since I started collecting. I mean, truly, my production grail.
Yeah, was this the Meccano?
Yeah, I finally got a Meccano 12-back. Yeah. And, Steve, actually, I think maybe it's even worth telling the story.
Why not?
I first saw it back in 2005, I think, on an auction.
Okay. Yeah.
And I lost it for $1,100. It was dead mint. And I remember talking to Stéphane Foucault, and he told me, you'll have no problem getting one of those for $1,000. I was like, okay, could you help me? And he tried helping me, and I didn't have luck with that. I ended up buying it just off of Facebook. And this is a whole thing. Like, why do you get into doing all this stuff? Why do you work so hard to connect and to be all over the place? It's because I got tagged, and I worked out a good deal.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's the most I've spent on anything in my entire collection. But I just couldn't possibly be happier about it.
No, that's great.
And then I did something else too, where I've been very interested in getting a Canadian 47 back. So that's the 4-LOM offer.
Okay.
Did you see this, Steve?
I don't know if I've seen this. No.
Okay, so I'm a French professor, so I love anything that has the offer with 2 languages.
Right.
So I have had a placeholder in my collection for about 9 years, and that is a cut card Canadian Chewbacca. So it's a 4-law muffler, but it's completely cut in half.
Okay.
And
All right.
I've always wanted to replace it. And again, someone on Facebook was up in Canada, and I thought it was a good excuse. I've been taking my kids to all these funerals, and things have just been so depressing.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's just go to Canada. And so we went to Canada, and it was funny because the kids were like, "Why are we doing this just for the toys?" I'm like, "We're not doing it for the toys."
No. It's not just for the toy.
No. So we ended up meeting at the IKEA in Burlington because there's no stupid IKEAs in my part of town. And
okay.
the kids learned about the joy of going to IKEA with Poppy.
Oh, boy.
Because you don't understand, okay? When you get down to the self-serve furniture area and they have those carts, they are perfectly weighted, they are perfectly oiled, and nobody cares. So I put both kids on the cart, and then I go to one of the abandoned aisles, and I get going like 10, 15 miles per hour, and then I'll like put my foot on one of the wheels so it makes it spin around. And we must have been there for like 20 minutes. We ended up spending like the whole day there, like eating meatballs and.
Yeah, so usually it's kind of like Disneyland where it becomes like a completely full day. Like, but I haven't done that. That sounds good.
Yeah, it was cool because it started off, and I got this 47 back, and I'll show the picture in the show notes. It's me in front of the cafe at IKEA, getting this great piece from Mark Schmidt. And, we talked about collecting a little bit. We talked about, what it's like up there. And, it was just awesome, to like actually meet somebody because I paid so much for the customs, for the cheek taba.
Yeah.
It was brutal. So I'm like, nope, I'm going all the way up to Canada. And then I have just a piece of news that most people don't know, Steve.
Okay.
On the way home, I decided to stop somewhere I'd never been before.
Where's that?
Did you know, Steve, there's these things called the Niagara Falls? Dude, there is like so much water. It is like unbelievable. They're like huge, and there's like all this water. I was like, shh. It's like one of the coolest things you will ever see, Steve. It is so unbelievably awesome.
I've never been. It's one of those things that it's on my list.
I've lived an hour from it for the last 6 years. I figured,
yeah, right. You're not far. That's
it's
right.
some water. Who cares? The trick is you have to go to the Canadian side, and it is just it is absolutely worth it. Like if you're trying to think, where should I go? I've been to Las Vegas, or maybe I'll go to Texas or something. Just go to see. It's unbelievable.
Go to Niagara Falls. Yeah. That's funny. My only my main association with that was it Superman 2, right? Where he saves her from the falls.
Oh yeah, was
that's
that there?
That's like I think so. But it's just it's like my point of reference for this like crazy landmark is some weird Superman movie. But no, I've always wanted to go. So glad to know that the Canadian side is the right side to check out. So
yeah,
awesome.
So yeah, that was my Canadian adventure, and it was just kind of a fun way to kind of close out this collecting year because on a personal level, it's been a pretty hard year, and whatever. Yeah. People have been complaining. I mean, I don't take David Bowie's death as a personal affront to me, but my mom dying that sucked.
That's yeah.
But as far as a collecting year goes, it's been like maybe the best year I've had since 2000, since I started the podcast. Actually, since I got all these proofs,
right?
I've just been rolling in awesome items.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I think the big news that we have, Steve, is information about the archive party. Now, one second. I want to do this for future listeners. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Future listeners. You don't want to hear about the archive party. It was awesome. It was great. It was the best thing ever. Okay? So, you can skip ahead to... You can skip ahead to 43 minutes and 30 seconds. So, the archive party, Steve, it's officially set. It's going to be when? Thursday, April what?
April 13th.
Thursday, April 13th. Okay, that's the Thursday of the show, April 13th. Thursday, April 13th. That's the Thursday of the show from 7 to 10 p.m. Where?
Right. At the Hyatt Regency Orlando, Ballroom Q, as of now.
Ballroom Q?
Q, yeah.
Q?
Q.
Q? Like the letter?
Yes.
That's stupid. Why do we get ballroom Q?
Because it's right off the escalator from the convention skywalk. It's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. As of now.
Ballroom Q.
Q. Yeah.
Q?
Q.
Q? Like the letter?
Yes.
Then in that case, it's good.
Yeah.
And once again, the charity is pet themed. It's the Pet Alliance. Is it really called the Pet Alliance of Greater Orlando?
Yes, that is exactly what it's called.
Wow.
Which is perfect for us. Yes.
Now, how many years has the archive party sold out? Now, we've done 2 of them. How many of them sold out?
Both times.
They both sold out.
Yes.
So that means that every single show has been completely banged out. Everybody wants to go. Everybody wants to hang out. Now, we're not going to announce all the vintage games here. See, we don't have to anymore, Steve, because people want to come. When we started this thing, people were like, what's this stupid thing? Why do I got to do it? Ooh. Okay? But we are going to once again have different levels. And the new thing that we're going to do is that we're going to start selling tickets at different times.
Right.
So if you definitely want to get in before it sells out, you have to buy the most expensive ticket. We're not going to do this thing because what would happen is tons of people would buy the cheapest possible tickets, and then basically a bunch of deadbeats would end up at the show as opposed to a bunch of people who want to help out the charity. And the reason that's important, Steve, is how much money do we keep?
0.
Okay, so if we sell a $20 ticket, right, how much of that goes to the Pet Alliance of Greater Orlando?
$20.
But what about like the costs to put everything on and like to rent the room, like the thousands and the tens of thousands of dollars that it costs to put on this party, Steve? Don't we use the amount of money that we raise to recoup?
Theoretically, no. Hopefully, no. That's all sponsors.
No, it's all sponsors. We don't recoup. Okay?
No.
So if we sell you the highest ticket, that's why we're doing it. Because basically the only thing that Steve and I get out of this is being able to say that we raised a ton of money for charity. And yes, that's ego, but I don't care. Screw off. We're doing nice things for puppies. What, you hate puppies? They hate puppies, Steve.
I hope not. I don't think... You're being a little harsh. It's okay.
Q?
Q.
Q? Like the letter?
Yes. It's going to be all right.
So when can the puppy haters buy tickets?
All right. So we talked about this, and this idea of kind of a multi-date sale is, I think, going to work out. The way it's going to work, there'll be levels just like the last party and the party before that. So do you want to just quickly run down what those are so people have an idea?
Yes. Okay. So let's start from the bottom.
I'll start from the bottom.
For children 12 and under,
right?
You deadbeat children who hate animals.
Kids. Meddling kids.
You meddling kids, once again. Like, I think the party's haunted. That is going to be... but, like, will there be food there? Okay. That'll be under 12 and under, and that'll be $20.
Right, the Young Jedi Knight ticket.
Yep. And you get
those will be available from the first day because I'm assuming there'll be some adults buying the nice ticket that are going to want to make sure their kids get a ticket too. So that's the lowest ring.
Yes. And then, of course, we have our loose figure ticket, which is $25.
Right.
And for that, you get to enter the party, and you get food.
Yes.
You get to eat. But I always know, Steve, that the loose figure puppy haters always end up eating the most food. That's okay. Is there another canapé back there? Because, like, I only got, like, 6. Okay. Then slightly less on the puppy hating scale is the MOC, which is a $30 ticket.
Yeah, and that'll get you one of our character card backs, a long-standing tradition of the archive party.
So if you don't know what that is, we make fake card backs that feel just like real card backs, that feel like real proofs, and they feature parodies of Star Wars characters with animals.
Yes.
And they're always very funny. We're going to announce them over the next couple months. They're always great. They're great this year. They're always great. So you can, and they're very collectible. Like the ones from the first 2 parties, they do sell on eBay. They are going to go up in value. these are great things, and these parties are the best things that happen in Celebration. So there's a lot of nostalgia that builds up around them. So it's good.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's the MOC. Up next, we have the pre-production ticket, which is $35. So you get one more card back. So you get 2 card backs with that one.
Yep. And then, of course, the Holy Grail, where for
Yep.
$65, you get the coin plus a set of 4 character card backs. So you get all the
Yes.
card backs and the Holy Grail.
Yep.
So if you don't hate puppies and you want to get a Holy Grail ticket, you can get that on Saturday, the 21st, January 21st, at 11:38 Pacific Standard Time. I came up with that, Steve.
Yes, I can tell you're quite proud of that.
And then the next day you can get pre-production. That's on Sunday. Monday you can get the MOC and loose figure. So if you're a cheap puppy hater, hey, maybe you can wait to get one of the 200 tickets. But if you want to guarantee yourself a place, you want to get that Holy Grail ticket on Saturday. Also because you get all the collectibles, you get all the swag, plus you end up helping out the pets. And there's, of course, one other layer to this, Steve.
Yes. So last time we introduced the Supreme Master ticket, which is basically the Holy Grail plus something extra special. I don't know how much you want to reveal about it here. But
let's not reveal it yet. We'll say that last year there was, last year, 2015. So when we did it. Was it really only last year?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy, right?
Wait, Celebration was last year?
Yep.
Okay, weird. Okay. It was the Digby Wing pilot.
Right.
And that was great. All I'm going to tell you is this. The item that is being made for the next archive party is going to be less centered on your knowledge of the Chive Cast, but way, way more broadly appealing to collectors of Star Wars stuff.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't know. The other thing we might want to tease is that you will have to have a choice between one thing or another.
Yes.
So that's another added element.
Yeah, it's like a Skye move right there.
Yeah.
Make you choose. But I want everything. You can't have everything, kid. So speaking of broadly popular, Steve.
Yes.
I think it's time for us to discuss the big news item of the month, which of course is Rogue One and the Rogue One Vintage Winners and Losers.
All right.
Chapitre 14. La rancune de Rogue.
Q.
Cette nuit-là, personne ne dormit dans la tour de Gryffondor. La rancune de Rogue. Cette nuit-là, personne ne dormit dans la tour de Gryffondor.
Q. It's time for the Chive Cast list of top vintage winners and losers of Star Wars, a Rogue One story, anthology of Star Wars story.
La rancune de Rogue.
Q.
I used to wonder, was I the only one in the world that farted?
All right, so, Steve, it never works that every time we record something at a different time than I release it on the show, I mention it. And it's because so much of the show ends up being about me editing it. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, you said that with resignation. So through computer magic, we've already actually recorded the rest of the show. We interviewed the Lehmkuhls. It went way better than we thought it was going to, or way better than I thought it was going to. It's always hard when you're interviewing 2 people at once. And we even recorded the goodbye and everything. And so I got hungry, so I had a little snack. And so I put it up on the enhanced version. This is the grossest snack I have ever invented in my entire life, Steve. Okay?
Oh, no.
This is, first of all, holiday flavor. A little bit of eggnog with nutmeg.
Oh. Okay. All right.
That's not bad. Now, in my other hand, I have some cold egg foo young, some cold pork egg foo young that I'm dipping in avocado ranch dressing. So,
okay.
It's actually pretty good. The thing is, eggnog does not go well with most foods that you eat.
No.
So I'm going to put that to the side. But anyway, it's been a long night. This is going to be a pretty silly wrap up here. But I did do one thing, Steve. In the future of the episode, I actually made callbacks to this section, knowing things I would talk about. And you had no idea.
I didn't.
But you see, that's what Rogue One is. So first of all, Steve, what is your Rogue One review? While I eat some of my egg foo young over here.
All right, I'll try and be brief.
Don't be brief. People want to hear what you think, Steve.
All right. Well, I'll say that, like with any Star Wars movie I've seen as an adult, I guess, it took a second viewing to really kind of understand how I felt about it. I'll say I really like the movie in general. I think the core concept is great. I personally thought the characters were interesting. I want to see, know more about them. The action was, spectacular. I mean, the whole thing.
And spoilers. We're going to spoil the whole movie. Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to spoil everybody in the whole movie. If you don't want to hear the discussion of the movie, jump ahead to
1 hour and 13 minutes.
Good. Now that you're here, everybody dies. I watched it with my daughter on Thursday night, the opening night.
Yeah.
And after every single death, she looked up at me and goes, "Poppy, is he dead? Poppy, is he dead? Are they dead?"
Man.
She was really sad.
Yeah. No, I mean, so, my theory on it, or my take on it, is that the movie at its core is great. And you made the argument that you really should look at it kind of outside of the main episodic series, which I agreed with. I mean, and I tried to look at it that way. And the fact that the stakes, as you said, are lower, I think that's good. And I think when it took advantage of that, it was awesome. But I will say that I feel like there's a second layer to it that drove me absolutely crazy the first time, less crazy the second time, but it's always going to bother me. And I'll say it this way. It feels like the movie got a special edition treatment before it was ever released. And I don't know if that makes any sense, but...
Whoa, Steve.
There was just
this... out of nowhere.
Whoa.
Okay, I'm awake now. I finished my egg foo young.
You finished your eggnog? Ooh,
eggnog foo young. I didn't realize I was eating both things with eggs in it. That's so gross. Eggnog.
That's
and
pretty gross.
Yeah,
that's nasty, man. I don't know. Yeah, please, if you need to stop, just. But no, it's just okay. The biggest problem I had, I just could not stand the reincarnation of Peter Cushing. It just took me out of it immediately. And I know why he's there. It makes sense story-wise. But once he turned around and was in your face and yep, this is happening and it's going to continue to happen. Yeah. And it just, to me, it sets a really dangerous precedent. That's my biggest thing. It's no, now what are they going to do? And sure enough, it's funny. I was talking to Bruce White about this a bit with the ending of the movie and Leia. I just Tess and I both just looked at each other with this really uncomfortable look on our faces. What is this? What is happening? And all I could think of was Malcolm's line from Jurassic Park, where they're talking about the scientists. He's they were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
Right.
And that's exactly how I feel about that whole thing. It just, I don't know. But that said, I the whole core of the movie was great. I loved seeing the conflict between the Empire and Rebellion. That was the best it's looked in ages. And I don't know. I mean, that's where I stand.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get into more of my thoughts with the winners and losers. I will say,
yes,
the thing I've heard the most complaints about is one of my favorite things, and that is Gullet. People don't like Saw Gerrera. They thought he was over the line. That's the same way that Akbar was over the line, okay? He's lies to treachery. Gullet.
But he has a fish head. I mean, that's I don't know.
There's that line where he's trying to talk to him about what he does, and the only response is "Poor Gullet." Like, that's such a great line, and the way that the creature looks. I agree with you about the special edition before it came out. If they just left the creature in the shadows before it actually wrapped up around his face, it actually would have looked good. It looked too goofy when it was on his face. But Poor Gullet has been my call. I post it everywhere. I think Poor Gullet knows if you tell the truth. Poor Gullet knows if you've been on other podcasts.
Oh yeah, so, no, that's.
So I get it. Everyone is saying they hate it now. Mark my words, people are going to love Poor Gullet in a couple of years. So what I have, Steve, are the 10 or so winners and the 6 or so losers from Rogue One. It's time for the Chive Cast list of top vintage winners and losers. Okay. So let's start with just a few of the winners. Okay. All
right.
I think that for number 10, I said TIE Fighters and X-Wings.
Yeah.
I think that collectors are going to continue to play with them. I think that children today are going to have more connections to them. I think they will with The Force Awakens, but Force Awakens had to do all those updates. So the fact that we have new, the original TIE Fighters and X-Wings looking so good is only going to mean positive things in the future. I do not think you can add the AT-AT. I leave AT-AT as a neutral on this. It's not on the list.
Ah, interesting.
I would say number 9 winner are TIE Fighter pilots and Luke X-Wing. Just kind of together there.
Yeah.
And then I would say for the number 6 loser, Steve, it says Admiral Akbar. 2 reasons Admiral Akbar lost Rogue One. One, he wasn't in it. And everybody in the theater was like, hey, is that Akbar? It's like, yes, that clearly different fish guy is Akbar.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have 2 thoughts on this. I think it's neat that they made him blue because we talked about it last episode. Like, originally he was described as this blue creature, which I thought was kind of neat. Who knows if that's why they did it? I don't know. But the only problem I have is, like, why make him sound exactly like Admiral Akbar? Like, why not go full, like, Winston Churchill, like, I don't know, make him British. Like, have a monocle or something, like, go. It didn't have to be so similar. And for him to say lines almost verbatim, like, engage those Star Destroyers, I'm like, all right, now you're starting to irk me a bit.
And the other problem is he's really cool. I think he's really cool.
He's not. I'm not saying he's not cool.
I think there's even a chance he's cooler than Akbar. I'm just saying.
Oh, come on.
The way he's got all googly eyes, he's hilarious. The way he looks, I was like, hey, what's going on down there? Like, I think what's going on down there could have the potential of a future line. Okay, so.
Yeah, no, I liked him. I wish they had made him a little more different.
So Akbar is my number 6 loser. My number 8 winner is actually one of my least favorite parts of the movie, but that's 3PO and R2-D2.
Oh, yeah, okay. So this is my next. I'm sorry. I got a lot of pent up energy about this.
But I'm just going to drink some ranch dressing.
Yeah. Just don't. Oh, God. But so, like, that moment is like a complete record scratch for me. Like, you finally, I know people have kind of complained about the first half of the movie kind of jumping all over the place, not making much sense, not really going anywhere. But then you have the crux of the movie starting and the momentum building, and then they just cut to them. And it's so just unnecessary. Like, I don't know. Okay, sorry. That's it on that
Yes,
point.
I agree it was clumsy, but it also indicates that they are going to actually try to make it that every single Star Wars movie has them in it.
Yeah.
Which actually kind of stinks, so maybe they lost.
It does. I mean, yeah, I think they lost because this is the standalone film, it's not part of the saga, right?
Yes.
So why make it part of the saga that way? That's my take on that.
I would say that the number 5 loser is the AT-AT Commander. I mean, that figure stinks. No one cares about it. It's stupid. And he wasn't even in the movie. I mean, you at least saw the AT-AT driver for a second. But, like...
But they were different. They weren't the same.
Right. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that for a movie, and we'll get to this later, that had so much Imperial officerness. It's like... They should have called the movie Imperial Officer, like, 1,000,000 instead of Rogue One. Because that's mostly what it was. So, I think the AT-AT Commander lost. Number 7 is fairly vague. I think Death Star-related items. You know, it's just having the story behind the Death Star. It made it a lot cooler. It made it a lot more interesting. The story behind it, I thought they fleshed it out really well.
I thought so too. And one thing that was kind of I noticed right away from the early trailers is that it really did look like the original Death Star. It didn't look like a spruced up modern. They did a good job of making it look real, but still like a model, if that makes any sense. Yeah.
So I would say that is the number 7 winner.
Okay.
Would you like a winner or loser next, Steve?
Let's go loser.
Ugnaughts. Let me tell you why. Because
all right, let's hear this.
Played this little teeny tiny terrorist.
Right.
And first of all, there's something to notice. Okay. There's a couple things to notice, but let's just stick with my original point. So he plays someone who looks kind of like an Ugnaught, but isn't an Ugnaught.
No.
And in the scene where they're fighting, he's actually in a Guggenheim-like tower. If you actually look at where he's fighting, it looks a lot like the thing that he's rappelling off on the Ugnaught. So it would have been a perfect Ugnaught tie-in, but it wasn't an Ugnaught.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say is I thought the movie was brave, and I haven't heard anyone really talk about this. But it was really a lot about terrorism, and it was about the value and positive meaning of terrorism, which is, but that's what Episode 4 is kind of about. Freedom fighters or terrorists, and it was really fascinating to me that they took Saw Gerrera and they combined Colonel Kurtz, so the character from Heart of Darkness and Apocalypse Now, the whole first movie is like, how do we get to this guy? And then you get to him, and he's crazy.
Right.
And Osama bin Laden. I mean, that's who he is. He's the ISIS guy. I mean, all of those guys who are working for him are, dressed up like that, and they're doing attacks in the middle. But he is a hero. He is fighting on the right side, but then they're uncomfortable with what he does. So anyway, I thought that they really laid it on thick, because we should be more uncomfortable with these themes than we are, but it is part of what we're rooting for. We are rooting for an insurrection. So,
no, I was gonna say, like, some of the stuff, the whole stuff on Jeddah was some of the stuff I really appreciated the most, just because it was something that really, like you said, hadn't been touched on or made as kind of morally ambiguous.
Because everybody, not only does everybody die in that movie, everybody sucks. It's like the good guys will torture you and shoot you in the back. The bad guys, they'll just kill you just straight up. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So that's how I got to. That's where I went from Ugnaughts.
Yes. Where are we gonna go next?
Number 6. You might think they'd be higher on the list and separated, but they're not. I think Darth Vader and Leia are just number 6, just together. I think they definitely won Rogue One, but not hugely. Leia especially, because it was whack. Her face looked whack. But even Vader, I don't know how much is really going to help him. I mean, it's cool to see him kick butt, and that was great to see. But I also, part of me is sad that is ruined. That Lucas's grand trick that he played on everybody, where he talked about the prequels. And he knew what everybody wanted. He talked about in interviews. Everybody wants to see Darth Vader killing people. And Lucas never wanted to give that to us.
Right. Well, that's exactly what I was just going to say. Is like it felt like a response to that need and that desire, which, sure, it was, pretty amazing and as a thing to behold. But I also, I don't know if you did this, but I went immediately and watched the beginning of Star Wars after it, and it just gave me this weird feeling when he makes his original entrance. Like it to see it juxtaposed with this absolutely like insane scene, and then right away his original kind of entrance, it almost felt deflated to me, and I didn't like that. Like it's just it's just I don't know. It also to me the whole ending kind of just made the weight of the main character's sacrifice like 2 minutes before like completely dissipate for me. Like sure, if you want to show it, maybe show it a little earlier. But I
disagree, Steve.
I think it could have.
I think it's cool. Because
you disagree?
It's so bleak to have them all die, and then the whole point of the movie is hope. So
yeah, but it doesn't have to be. All right, I'll give you that. But just.
But anyway, I was happy. I was happy that Vader's voice. They didn't blow it. He sounded correct. I think they could have taken it easy on the whole being faithful to the whack costume. It's like, hey, he's got red eye visors. Yeah, but the red eye things like they're lame. And hey, look, his cape looks like he's an old woman wearing a shawl. It's just like the original. Like, why were they so faithful to the worst looking Vader outfit there's ever been? Anyway, I don't quite get that. So that's why I kind of put it up as a toss. Although his layer on Mustafar I thought was the best thing you could ever do for prequel fans because that is the prequel moment. That is the this is Anakin Skywalker lives on Mustafar, not Darth Vader.
Right.
I
thought that was great.
Number 5, you might not expect it to be so high, but I'm trying to think about is the impact of vintage. The impact on vintage collecting from the success of this movie. And I think the Rebel Commando really is a lot harder figure now because that's what all these guys were. They were all like these tired-looking, scruffy dudes. So
yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
In a similar way, I would say that the Imperial Gunner was very featured. And I don't really know how these things pan out, but I felt the desire to buy an Imperial Gunner toy when I was watching the movie. Just because the Imperial Gunners had so much action. Like, they set off so many things, and they looked so cool. I didn't feel like they got... I don't know. I didn't really see... I don't feel like I saw them as much in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. It's definitely not as much as the original. I feel like this was kind of... It definitely put the spotlight on them the way that the original movie did. And their calculator firing mechanism.
Yes. So that's going to lead us to the top 3, Steve. Hey guys, time for an ad break. Listen, I know you could order your underwear on the internet, but why would you do that? That's just silly. Just go ahead and buy underwear like at a store. You don't need to subscribe to underwear either. I don't think you need to subscribe to anything. I mean, it's just wasteful consumption. So, just put in promo code ChiveCast next time you go to the store to buy underwear. Yes. So that's going to lead us to the top 3, Steve.
Okay. So wait, are we going back to losers yet?
Sure, we can go to losers.
Still doing...
The number 3 loser, Steve, I think it's Walrus Man.
Oh,
because
God, don't
that
even.
was the worst scene in the movie where they inserted him.
It absolutely,
It made them kind of a joke. It made them less interesting, less fun. I didn't feel like 3PO and R2. I'm like, okay, fine, they're just whatever, Mickey Mouse in the back of a Disney movie. Who cares? And the Leia and Vader, like, it's a little addition or a little subtraction. But with Walrus Man, I just felt like, oh man, they messed up that character because they live on Tatooine. Okay.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. That's the second layer that I'm talking about, and I just.
And I love how we didn't even explain what the special edition was because you said Rogue One was like a special edition. I talked earlier about the special edition of the Chive Cast 16 on YouTube. I don't think I ever even talked about it, did I?
Oh, well, the Chewie one? Yeah, we mentioned it.
Well, what I'm doing is I'm enhancing old unenhanced episodes.
Yeah.
But I'm also adding some new content in there. So like I did a comparison about like I talked all about the getting the figures because I talked in that episode about what my Grails were, and I kept getting them. So I told the stories about getting those Grails in the 5 years that's interceded. So that's why it's a special edition, because you have one of the creators going in and screwing up the original.
You didn't have any like gigantic Ronto asses in the frame.
But that's what I say every time I post one up. I'm going to say, "Get your Rontos." So I'm going to keep doing those special editions as we go through collecting. Which brings us to the number 3 vintage winner. And I'd say that is the Death Squad Commander.
Ooh.
Because much like the Imperial Gunner, he had a lot of screen time. But also, just because I happened to, last month, have found my vintage Death Squad Commander with the helmet painted white.
Right, yeah.
I think it's time for us to officially declare that the Death Squad Commander is also a Rebel soldier.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
I'm going to say this for the benefit of our grammar Nazis out there. For all intensive purposes, for all intents and purposes, in the vintage world, if you didn't do that, it was just because you didn't have any whiteout. Because the first scene of A New Hope is so iconic and is so important, and all you had to do was just do a little tweak, and you had those toys. So I think the Death Squad Commander wins on both sides of the rebellion, and the Empire.
Yeah.
The number 2 loser, Steve, is Kenner.
Uh-oh.
Do you know why? This is going to make... It's actually all of us. It's Kenner and all vintage collectors. Because this is only going to redouble the amount of... How come they didn't make a Tarkin? I mean, they made Klaatu and like 2-1B, but Tarkin was like one of my favorite characters when I was like 20 and I was watching the movie again. I wanted to play with Tarkin. This is the I want Tarkin guy voice.
I like this.
You know, like he's a really good actor. It's like, have you ever watched the Hammer movies?
Peter Cushing would absolutely hate you.
Peter Cushing was like so great. He was like a great British actor. I've never seen any of his movies, but people tell me he's really great. And like, why did they do all the other stuff? Oh, so we're just gonna get more of that now that Tarkin is more important. Even if he's weird cyber Tarkin, he did have a good role. I thought he was well written. The voice was good. We'll get over the uncanny valley eventually. So I think we lose because it'll just continue the most boring debate in all of vintage collecting. Why didn't they make a Kenner?
Yeah.
And the reason why they didn't make a Tarkin is because nobody wanted a Tarkin. Suck it. Okay. I would say the number 2 winner are, in fact, Imperial Commanders.
All right.
That's the one with the stupid hat, right, Steve?
Yeah, like just the officer-looking guy?
That's the name of the toy, right? Yeah.
Yes, that is him.
Because this movie has so many Imperial commanders, and Krennic is basically a commander, and they're just everywhere, and it just made the bureaucracy of the Empire seem a lot cooler.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, bureaucracy is cool.
Yeah. And then the number 1 winner, Steve. I think it's pretty hard to refute. I think it's still going to be Stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Stormtroopers were great. They got their asses kicked. The best scenes in the movie were scenes where the I'm really vulgar this episode. I'm going to have to edit out some of the swears. Like where I call you a complete and total sucker. You know, like Stormtroopers are just super exciting, and there's all the different kinds and all that, but they're really
right.
Just the general trooperness of it. It just made the Empire look a lot cooler. Now I am reading the book, Steve, I'm actually
like
the novelization.
Like the novelization? Oh, okay.
And there is actually a misprint in the audio book. So you know how she's playing with the little toy stormtrooper?
Yes.
That's one of the coolest things. That's one of the reasons Stormtroopers won, was that they had that the little Jyn Erso was playing with a toy stormtrooper. So that's the only Star Wars toy in a Star Wars movie is a stormtrooper. Yeah. Unless you count the weird X-wing thing from
the weird
Force
Awakens.
Right. Okay, fine. One of the two. But in the audiobook, it's actually named, and they name it Stormy.
Oh my God.
So, of course,
at least
it should be
Troopy.
So it's a misprint. It's a misprint. His name is Troopy. It's a misprint in the audiobook.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Which you think the fact they'd call it Stormy would make me the biggest loser of Rogue One. But Steve, would you like to know who's the biggest loser in Rogue One? I have not sent you this list, but I think you know what it is.
I have a
Gold
good guess.
leader, red leader. You know what? Screw it. Let's put in the Mon Calamari ships, even if they weren't in New Hope. You know, let's really emphasize the Y-Wings that have bombers. Let's have all these X-Wings in there. Let's throw some A-Wings in there. You know what else we can throw in there?
Were there A-Wings in there?
Well, there was at least the Ghost from Rebels, okay?
Oh.
There was like two big ships. Yeah, there were some A-Wings flying around back there. Do you know what there wasn't, Steve? Do you know what was the one? You know what, Steve? They actually invented another ship. They invented a letter ship. They invented a U ship. They wanted to stay so far away from the U ship from the biggest loser of Rogue One, of course, is the B-Wing and the B-Wing pilot.
Of course it is. Yeah. No, I could have told you that before we started.
So many ships.
You know,
and they didn't care if it was in Jedi or if it was in Star Wars.
Oh,
Just go ahead and do it. Invent a U-Wing. Oh.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it had more U-Wings than the New York Knicks, and it didn't have one B-Wing.
Nope, not a one.
So.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on.
So really, Steve, you and I lost with Stormy and no B-Wings.
Yes.
But of course, vintage collectors really win. This just helps us. It brings more people there. It was fun. It's going to make a ton of money, and they're just going to make more movies like this, and they'll make ones that are better, make ones that are worse, and it just keeps feeding. It's just like what I said when they sold to Disney. They took what we collect and turned it from Wizard of Oz into Batman. So it's some Batman movies are going to be great, some Batman comics are going to be great. Suicide Squad might happen, but it'll always bounce back and it'll always keep going because there's always more money. So vintage collectors win again. Mr. State Trooper, please don't stop me. Please don't stop. So now that we've discussed the winners and losers, how about we go to our sort of the meat of the show? I think these guys.
That was the cheese, right?
Yeah, that was
Rogue One was the.
That was the cheese. And I think these guys work out a lot, so maybe they're like the beef of the show. I don't. Do they work out a lot? Who the hell are these guys, Steve? I don't know. I've seen their names all over the place. This is going to turn into some kind of like Mark Maron interview.
Lock the gates.
But I've seen their names all over the place.
It's about time we found out, right?
Yeah, it's about time we found out. So let's call up Cincinnati and talk to the Lmkuhl bros. I'm not the man my actions would suggest. A little boy. All right, Steve. Well, we are here with, we've had lots of brothers on the show, but they've only ever been my brothers.
Yes, that's true.
so we're happy to have Ryan and Sean Lmkuhl. How's it going, Ryan?
Pretty well. Yourself?
It's going great. You're just coming home from work, is that right?
Yep. I work late night.
Yeah. Where do you work?
I do a bunch of different entertainment jobs. I had trivia tonight, so.
Oh, trivia. Oh, man. See, trivia is a kind of thing where I'm, like, really good at it, but I'm kind of embarrassed because I think it's kind of lame to be really good at trivia. So, like, I just don't do it. But then when I do it, I get really competitive, so.
Oh, it's super lame. I just make money on it.
Yeah. And how about you, Shauna? Are you working?
No, I am off until January 3rd, so I'm enjoying about a little over 2 weeks of laying around the house, hunting for Star Wars stuff, and waking Ryan up at 4 hours earlier than he's supposed to get out of bed. So,
told me that it was 9:30 a.m. and it's actually 9:30 p.m.
Yeah, so I apologize. This morning I was blowing Ryan's phone up to tell him to get out of bed, and I'll give him credit. He was up. I mean, It's interesting because if we have a lead and we're ready to go to their house and they want to meet at 10 o'clock in the morning, I can't get a hold of Ryan until noon. But for this podcast show, I mean, he was up and out of bed, so I'm thoroughly impressed. Good job, Ryan.
Probably the most important thing for me to know, as the youngest brother, which one of you is the older brother?
Which one do you think is?
The more mature one, that would be Sean.
Jeez, Steve.
The one that keeps the schedule.
Okay. All right. So then Sean's the older and Ryan's younger. Okay.
Correct.
You can never quite tell. I am more responsible than. Actually, I'm not more responsible than my brothers. I'm a mess. Well, I haven't really thought of a better way of saying it, other than to basically call this interview, "Who the hell are you guys?" Because I think that's the question you've gotten the most since you've started collecting. Like, who? And this is the thing. It's one of my favorite things about collecting. There was a time where I had just purchased a whole bunch of Chewbacca proofs. And none of the Chewbacca collectors knew who I was, and they saw me at Celebration, and they were like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Like, so like I've heard your guys' names for years, but I don't really follow things too much, and so I talked to Yehuda a fair amount, and he knows you guys, and he's like, "Oh, Skye, they're great. Get them on the show." He told me it like 2 years ago, and I haven't done it. And so
you obviously know not to believe anything he says, then, right?
Yes, that's true. There's two kinds of things. There's the truth and whatever Yehuda says.
which can
like
I'm just here to tell the truth.
Yes. So I mean, I think that the main thing that let's just kind of like let's start with Sean, just because his phone's coming in a little bit more clearly. So if someone were to say, "Who are the Lehmkuhl brothers?" how would you describe yourself as collectors?
Well, I think we come by it honestly because our parents have always collected something, whether it be antique furniture, antique tin wind-ups. I mean, at one point my mom was even collecting antique kitchen utensils. So
wow.
We come from a family where my parents always went to toy shows, they went to auctions, and we kind of developed a love for the collecting bug when we were little. We started with baseball cards, as a lot of people do, and then we graduated into toys and went a little out of control with it, and that's where we are now. But really what got us back into it is we're born and raised. We're from Cincinnati. When I was growing up, when Ryan was growing up, I'm a little bit older than him. So
now, can we get an idea of what that is? Because I get the sense that you guys are like 15 years old, but you could be older than me.
No. So I'm I have to think about it. So let me guess that means I'm getting elderly. I'm 34 now. Ryan's 32.
Okay.
And we've been collecting since '95. So when we started collecting, really what happened was, we like I said, we've always collected one thing or another. And we were walking through Trader's World, and I don't know how many are familiar with Don Gibbs, who used to own a company called Toys Plus of Cincinnati.
Well, let's just explain Trader's World, because most of our audience knows.
Yeah.
But let's do a vintage vocab. Can you explain what is Trader's World? Because it's very important.
So Trader's World is this gigantic outdoor and indoor flea market. Nowadays, it's more indoor than outdoor. But what would happen is every Saturday and Sunday you'd show up. I think the gates technically open around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And you could go in, and it's just a giant flea market where there were some people that actually had businesses that they would run out of there, and you could find all sorts of vintage Star Wars stuff. So, back in '95 when we started collecting, there was very little of the modern stuff that was actually at the flea market. The majority of it, which is kind of flip-flopped from today, 95% of it or so is vintage.
Right.
And we would go there, and there's a gentleman named Don Gibbs who I think was actually on Toy Hunter, which is kind of funny, but he always had the best vintage Star Wars items, the early stuff all the way through the droids and Ewoks lines. And so Ryan and I would go in there and we'd save our money up, and at that time we really didn't know how to go about getting it ourselves, so we had to go through dealers, and he was the dealer that we used. And so we'd save up, and we'd go in there after 2 weeks of saving our money. We'd get something like a loose, complete A-wing pilot, and we'd buy it together as a team. So we started our collection really 50-50. The first purchase I remember us making, Ryan, do you remember what it was that we made at Don's booth when we decided we wanted to collect Star Wars?
Ooh, this is like Match Game, or what's that? The Newlywed Game.
Yeah, we talked about trivia to start off the
that's right.
The discussion tonight. So let's bring it full circle already, right?
So
Ryan, do you remember the first thing we bought there?
First thing we bought there, geez.
It had cellophane on it that Don had put over it.
Was it a big item or small item?
It was a bunch of small items inside a big one. Come on, I should give it right away.
Was it a blue snag or no?
No. So it was a Darth Vader head case that was filled with, I think,
I remember
40 figures complete, and he had taken like cellophane or Reynolds wrap and covered it so they wouldn't fall out. And I think at the time it was like $200 or $250. And I remember buying it and leaving Trails World with my parents, because at the time I was 13 years old and Ryan was 11, and thinking, wow, I guess we're Star Wars collectors now.
That's an awesome place
cool.
to start.
The funny thing was, career-wise, I'm in sales and advertising and marketing, and I actually vividly remember the first thing I ever can recall negotiating on was before we had bought this from Don years prior. I had gone with my dad to an antique show right down the street from where we live, and I had bought a complete TIE Fighter pilot for either $2 or $3 that I negotiated down from $5. And that's still in our collection, too. Well, so it's kind of cool, because that was the first thing I ever vividly remember negotiating on, which I do for a living now. So it's kind of neat how it all ties back to Star Wars.
Right, but Sean, don't forget that we actually owned a couple figures ourselves in our parents' basement that we found after we saw the re-release of the original trilogy in the 90s. We found a little box, a little fishing tackle box that had a couple figures in it, and this was the time of Tomart's price guide, and I wonder what these are worth or whatever, and we started digging through the box, and we found a Imperial Gunner.
Yep.
And that was probably both of our favorite figures, because it was just so sleek and so just cool.
Yeah.
And I remember we looked it up, and it was like $75. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are jackpot. These are amazing.
We thought we were going to retire right then and there at 13, 11 years old.
Well,
it's funny because when I in preschool, so we like I said, we've always been, we were born and raised in Cincinnati, and in preschool, I actually remember a kid I was in class with. I'm not going to say his last name for obvious reasons, but his dad was a executive at Kenner, and he would bring in cardboard boxes full of baggied figures. And I know, at least I don't believe that any baggied examples have turned up, but that's where I got that Imperial Gunner. He came from a Kenner baggie. Now, I don't think he's a first shot. He's got the markings and everything on the back of his leg. But all those figures that we had in that box when we had found it, the initial collection when we were children, all originated from the preschool I went to. And, growing up and going to elementary school, Ryan, do you remember the carnival gifts they used to do at the elementary school?
Yep.
So there's a lot of kids, in elementary school there's it's K through 4, so there's, 5 different grade levels, and there were multiple children we went to school with, their parents worked at Kenner. So the carnival that we grew up with was basically sponsored by Kenner. All the prizes that you could win, all the different toys they gave away were all carded and boxed Kenner items. So it would be anything from Power of the Force, if they had leftovers, like, the lovely B-Wing pilot, where there's a million of those out there, up to, Mask and Real Ghostbusters as we got older. So it was really interesting because we grew up basically getting free Kenner toys all the time. It was almost like we were sponsored by Kenner in school.
Right. Well, that's awesome because, where I live, there's a big supermarket chain called Wegmans, and they run everything, and everything's sponsored by them, and everybody knows somebody who works for them. And, I guess it's kind of easy now with Hasbro taking over and that distance. I rarely think about Kenner as being like something that you would grow up with as a child, but that makes sense that you had so many. That's pretty cool, having friends who whose parents work for Kenner. Yeah.
It's interesting because a lot of these kids, I went to their house and I played with their toys and stuff. And now looking back, you try to remember what you played with, right? Like,
right.
You know, maybe I played with like the White Witch. You know, you never know. Looking back, I can't recall exactly what, you know, the specific toys they were, but I just know I would go to kids' houses that had, you know, just an absolute surplus of action figures and vehicles. And I mean, looking back now, I laugh about it. We used to go to yard sales, and my parents would buy, you know, action figures and toys. And Ryan actually has a really good story because the first prototype that we bought on purpose, which we'll get back to the one we bought on accident. The first prototype we ever found. Ryan, you want to talk a little bit about your lunch with one of your coworkers?
Well, real quick before that, so going back to like the first time you remember Star Wars, and of course I'll move quickly, but so when I was about maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, I would go get the bus every day at a neighbor's house, and I can say his name because everybody knows who he is anyways. Is that okay, Sean?
Yeah, that's fine.
Redacted.
Who is, is rather the head sculptor or in charge of the line for the Power of the Force 2 and so on and so forth in the 90s for Kenner, which became Hasbro. He's still with them today up in Pawtucket. And his mother would watch me before the bus every day before school. And David,
Redacted.
I think, is probably maybe 42 now or so. And his two younger brothers, the one was Sean's exact age and the other was my exact age. We'd go over there every day before, you know, going off to elementary school and grade school to catch the bus. And I can remember, actually, I have a pretty fond memory of
Redacted.
He had first started working for Kenner and doing the sculpting and whatnot. Him bringing home a little box and saying, "Hey Ryan, I know you like Star Wars. Check this out." And he opened up a little shoebox, and I remember it as clear as day. It was a skin-colored yak face, unpainted. There were still pins in his arms, pins in his legs, and the best part is it wasn't Power of the Force 2. It was Power of the Force.
Oh, my God.
And, yeah, so I remember actually seeing a bunch of these rare prototypes and actually holding them. And, of course, he said, you know, you can't take these with you. I signed these out of the morgue. But it was kind of cool just to kind of see them in person and knowing that, God, I would love to get my hands on these to have them in my collection, but I can't touch them. So that was kind of cool, though, knowing, you know, growing up with the guy who's now basically the head of the Star Wars line of toys for Hasbro, but back then Kenner here in Cincinnati. But then moving forward into the story, so I was at a Cincinnati Cyclones hockey game, which is kind of like a, I don't know, tier 2 team, whatever, here in Cincinnati. And I was with a fellow DJ friend of mine who was my mentor in the DJ industry. And we were drinking, having a good time, talking about Star Wars for whatever reason. And he's like, "Oh, dude, you should come over and check out what I have when I was growing up. It's in my office. I have this one figure that's all white. I don't know why. It's weird. I think my parents put it up at a garage sale, you know, for like 25 cents back in like the 80s. And I was like, no, there's no way. You know, this can't be real. All right, dude, I'll come over tomorrow and see it." So, of course, the very next day at like noon, I'm over at his office, and he pulls it out. And sure enough, man, it is a first shot, unpainted Dengar.
Wow.
And I'm like, "Oh, my God, what do I have to do to get this?" And he's like, "I'll tell you what, man." He's like, "Honestly, dude, I'm not connected to these things like hardcore like you are. I know you're a big collector. This will look great in your collection. I'll tell you what, you give me a complete set of Star Wars figures, you know, from A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. I don't care what condition they're in. They could be missing legs. I don't care. And they don't have to have weapons, and I'll just give you this." And I'm like, done. So I go home, grab a box, go to his house, or go back to his office, dig through the box, find all the figures, and I'm like, "Is that cool trade?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, you can have it. It's good."
That's awesome.
And I remember I was in disbelief. And believe it or not, this was only about, what, Sean, maybe 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, about four and a half years ago.
Maybe 4 to 5 years ago. I was in total disbelief, like, this can't be happening. And I remember calling Sean, like, "Dude, you're not going to believe this. I just picked up a first shot unpainted figure, and we ended up getting it graded. It came back as a 90. And I was just, like, in disbelief, and my brother and I were just like, whoa. But the one guarantee that I made to that friend of mine who I got this figure from was this figure will forever be one of the main pieces in our collection. And I, you know, he basically told me, he's like, don't trade it or sell it. It's yours. I'm giving this to you because I know it's worth a lot of money. I know it's high value. But for us, it's not really about value. It's about the coolness, the history behind the figures and how the figures were made. And he knew that we would cherish it in our collection. And to this day, every person that has seen our collection, one of the things they point out is that specific figure. Like, oh my God, what could I do to get that? I'm like, you ain't touching it.
Well,
and
that's an awesome story too, because for that guy, it's actually not a bad trade. I mean, money-wise, he loses out, but if what he really wants is a lot of awesome Star Wars toys, that's a pretty cool way to get a complete set and to do well by your friend. You know, that's wow. You know, Steve, I didn't expect this to be so heartwarming. I mean, I knew that they would be brothers and stuff, but I didn't realize it was going to be talked about little kids. What I love is the image, because, you know, one of the things that, you know, one of the main reasons I started this whole thing with is, you know, who the hell are you guys? Is because, you know, on this show, part of the reason we did this show, to be frank, is I used to hang around a lot with Ron Salvatore, and he would tell me stories about going to Cincinnati and getting stuff. And I was trying to figure out, how can I get these stories out? Because I love these stories so much. And so part of the show was because I'm just passionate about this kind of idea of how are all these things found. And so then eventually I just started hearing everybody who was looking for prototypes in Cincinnati being like, there's these two guys and they keep finding stuff. And these two brothers, they keep doing stuff. I think one of them's a DJ. I think they always do a high five. Did you guys do a high five? I heard something about that. Anyways, so like a legend grew up around you guys, you know, which I don't know if you meant to do that, but it seems that everyone who finds prototypes has some kind of legend built around them. So I now have this image, Steve, of like Ron and Chris and Todd and Gus and everything running around like in '95, and then like a 10 and 11-year-old Ryan and Sean like just sort of behind, like not really in the focus of the movie, but they're kind of like the Easter eggs in the back, and they're like, you know, picking up a Vader case at Trader's World like at the same time, because they must have been there at the same time at some point, right?
Oh, I'm sure, but they were smart enough. They were outside looking through the trunks of cars of people that had frequented the yard sales all week long, and we're going in to get We're going in to get all the stuff that's been marked up already.
Right.
Pretty much right.
But yeah, so I think it's fun because really what's happened is it seems like there's like this sort of second generation of people trying to find stuff. So I know that's sort of one of the other fun things. So what's the prototype that you accidentally got, Sean? I mean, yes.
So let me I'll kind of, you know, frame the story for you a little bit. So, you know, we collected. Basically, I collected all the way through high school, and I owned it too. I was proud of it. You know, I think when you're going through that age of your life, you know, you're a little awkward, and everybody knew me as a Star Wars guy. And I went away to college, and when you're in college, obviously you have no money, so I stopped collecting for a long time. And to be honest, I was living in Louisville at the time, Louisville, Kentucky, for work, and I started seeing this show called Toy Hunter, and you know, I've never had a chance to talk to him in person, but if I ever talk to Jordan, I'll tease him about it, because he basically created the monsters that Ryan and I are now, because I watched the show, and I think of the first like 5 or 6 episodes, 2 or 3 was of Jordan saying, all the best toys are in Cincinnati, all the best toys are in Cincinnati, and he kept going there, and I saw what he was spending, and I saw how he handled and obviously a lot of it's done for TV, but I saw how he handled the negotiation, and it, you know, it kind of alivened that collecting spirit in me, but it kind of also released the beast of competition and the ability to go out there and, as an adult, pretty much treasure hunt, because that's what we're doing. I mean, anybody that goes out there and actively tries to find stuff from the original owners or things that have been in the same cardboard box for the last 30 plus years, that's what they're doing. They're treasure hunting. Right. And one of my favorite movies of all time is Goonies. So it's like the modern day version of Goonies, right? Going out there and looking for One-Eye Willie's gold. I mean, that's what this is to me. And I called Ryan. I remember watching the show, calling Ryan and saying, hey, you need to watch this. Tell me what you think. And he called me back, and pretty much that day we decided to go out there and start looking for stuff. And, you know, we started small.
That was awesome, man. That was cool.
Yeah, we started small. I remember Ryan, do you remember that storage unit we went to? It was like the dead of winter 5 or 6 years ago. And this guy had like a complete AT-AT and a couple other things. And I remember spending like $300 or $400 and driving home and feeling absolutely sick to my stomach, like, oh my God, my wife is gonna kill me. And it's just, you get to a point, it's like the collecting bug, and you become so numb and desensitized to prices, which I guess could be a bad thing in certain ways. But we just went from there, and we decided probably the best way to help subsidize our collecting costs would be to buy and sell on the side, and just do toy shows and things like that. So we had gone to a little tiny country auction. It's not one of those auctions that's online or anything. We knew they had some Star Wars stuff. And I think Ryan I think I was out of work that day. I remember you went, didn't you? You're the one that bought the box lot of 20 to 30 figures for $20, right?
Well, it was a small toy company that the guy moved away. He was selling off his stock. And at that point in time, I think we had been doing it for maybe 2 or 3 months by now.
Yeah, we had just started.
Basically, it started out not even Star Wars. It was another auction, and they happened to screw up at the auction, and they put something up for sale that wasn't supposed to go for sale till the next day. So nobody was there to buy the pieces that we ended up buying. They were actually original early 90s, late 80s Disney store front window models of the Disney characters, if you remember those in the front window. And we got them for next to nothing. We didn't really, grow fond of them, so we sold them quickly, and we made a bunch of money. So now we had a small bank, and this auction that I happened to just walk into, I see a bunch of figures and stuff, and I'm like, all right, I got some cash to spend. Let's see what happens. And ended up winning the auction for a pretty heavy sum of money, but versus what it was honestly next to nothing. And then we had asked the owner, and we said, hey, do you guys have any more stuff from this same person? And he said, well, we're not going to do it every week. Come back on the same week of the month for the next 3 or 4 months, and we'll be auctioning off his stuff. So we go back the next month, and there's a box lot of stuff. And at this point, I'm like, okay, we got all the cream of the crop, last month. Let's see what happens here. And we kind of figured, beater figures in a box, no weapons, a buck a piece, whatever. And there were about 20 figures in a box, so I think my max bid on the box was $20. And I think I got it for maybe $15, so it didn't even go to my max bid. And I figured, these figures we already had in our collection, but if nothing else, we'd put the profit towards buying more stuff for our collection. And so I'm at home cleaning the figures, because as my brother knows, I'm anal about cleaning every little piece of dust off every figure before we sell it or whatever, make everything.
He uses a toothbrush.
Okay.
Yep.
I think. Ryan, do you prefer soft, medium, or hard bristle?
Soft bristle.
Okay. Soft bristle.
Off-brand, off-brand soap is okay. But basically, I'm going through the figures, washing them off, thinking, okay, we have a couple extra weapons. Anything that's really nice, I can pair those up with a weapon. The other ones will go into a beater box, so it's not worth putting a weapon with. But as we know, some of the weapons are more valuable than the figures if the figure is piece crap. So I'm going through the box, I pull out a hammerhead, and I start to clean it with my brush. And I'm like, that's weird. His eyes aren't painted. Okay? And I look down at his neck, and I realize that his cowl, that's supposed to be brown to match the skin color of his arms and hands and head, is still that deep aqua blue.
Uh-huh.
And that's weird. His neck's not painted. No, there's no way. I'll look and see if it has a COO on the back. I turn it over, no COO on the leg. Sean, I immediately get onto my phone, call Sean, and go, Sean, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. What? He can tell that I'm frantic. But dude, I just bought a freaking first shot and a $15 box of figures with a hammerhead. He's like, dude, no way. Bring it over here. So I jumped in my car, drive 15 minutes down the road, bring it to my brother. He's like,
it takes an hour and a half to get over, by the way.
Okay.
And I'm waiting the entire time.
I'm always late by 10 times the amount, I tell you.
It's true.
Needless to say, I cleaned it with a brush, all the dirt and grime off of it. We sent it into the good old AFA, and they came back in 85 first shot hammerhead.
Yeah, we don't do AFA stuff anymore, really.
No, well, I mean, it's really fascinating. So, Toy Hunter really got you started, which was what, 2010? Is that right?
Yes, that sounds about right. Yeah. If he had never come to Cincinnati, I probably would have never actively gone after the amount of stuff that we've gone after. The fact that they filmed in Cincinnati, it's kind of like
they were on your turf.
No, it's not that at all. It's just that we've grown up in Cincinnati. I think a lot of people, the weather's not the best here. We live in a valley. It probably sounds like I have really bad allergies, but that's what we sound like all year long here in Cincinnati. And it's almost like, as weird as it sounds, it's like a natural resource, right?
Yeah.
So the stuff that's turned up here hasn't really turned up anywhere else. I mean, there's a few places here and there, but, the majority of it has turned up basically within a 25, 30-mile radius of where we were born and raised, and we both still live. And I think when you start to realize that, and you realize, well, you know what, before I knew about this, like, I was already in love with the action figure line, like the movies, my 3 favorite movies of all time. Why not make a go of it? Why not give it a shot? What do you got to lose? And and that's what we did. And it's funny because both of our, I think maybe Ryan will disagree with this, but my main goal, the one that got away, I had a chance to buy a rocket firing FET for $1,000 when I was 13 years old. And
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, thanks, Mom. And I wanted to take my Providence stock, PNC, I think it was a bank stock at the time, and I wanted to cash some of it out and buy it. She said, no, bank stocks will never go down. Well, we don't know what happened there.
Oh, man.
So that's the one. It's funny because everything, I kind of look at it, and I'm glad it got away, because everything that we have found has been a byproduct of me looking for that one figure. I mean, one of the places that we try to advertise to get people to reach out to us and sell their items to us I have like a little tiny booth at this really big antique mall right outside of town, and I come up with weird and funny and quirky little advertisements, and one of them is I use a picture of a rocket firing FET. I would prefer the L slot, the non-painted for anybody that's listening. And I put things up there like, let me pay your mortgage for up to a year, and I put a picture of that photo with my number. Or I put, let me pay for a trip for you and your significant other to Bora Bora for 2 weeks. And so I found quirky little ways, and it's funny because, even though, the vast majority of people that see that I'm never going to have any connection to anybody that has one of those for sale. But I've gotten calls off of it because people want to know the story. And I've even added in the upper left-hand corner of the ad is, yes, I'm serious. No, my wife doesn't know about it.
Right.
And it's funny because every once in a while I'll go in there and I watch people read it, and every single person laughs that reads it. So it's kind of a good little icebreaker.
Well, I really like – I like the story a lot because a lot of times people think about doing something and then they don't do it. And then someone else does it, and they get pissed. So, like, I know, I used to go to Cincinnati, like, once a year, but I didn't go to, like, buy toys. I went to just, like, take pictures of the sites of Kenner and stuff. I'd go to the Ohio Star Wars Collector Club meeting, and I went as a historian. But, like, I never really thought about getting prototypes because I just figured, well, either they're all gone, or if I get them, I'll have to be competing with people who I, want to be friends with, or I am friends with, or whatever. And so I really like the idea that you just sort of like, hey, wait, we can do that. And then you just did it. And that's how this podcast started. It was back in 2010, around the same time. And Steve and I were like, we'll just do it. And it's like, well, why would you do it? I'm like, I don't know, just because we did, So that's awesome. I got to say, The reason, Ryan and Sean, that we decided to talk to you this month is for something that I think is much cooler than rocket FET. I mean, I've seen tons of rocket FETs, but you showed something on Facebook that I'd never seen before, and I think you have a lot of these little things like this that maybe not are as valuable as rocket FET. But could you explain what this little piece of paper is? Explain it to Steve as though he has not seen it. What is the piece of paper with Chewbacca and measurements on it?
Oh, it's just my understanding is it's basically a very rough outline for the measurements. I don't have my computer in front of me. I think Chris G or maybe even Steve York, somebody commented about maybe Ben Sheehan. Somebody commented about what they believe the measurements and tail, but I believe it may have been for a first shot of just the limbs, the arms, the legs, the torso, and the rough measurements of it. But what I love about the piece of paper more than anything, what caught my eye initially when I found it, is how Chewbacca is spelled, where it's spelled with a U, and you could tell it's in the very early stages of communication about the licensing and about the movie, and there's some other stuff that we're kind of holding off on sharing, but it's very early as well, and I think we eventually posted, people are going to be pretty excited about it. So I hate to leave you like a cliffhanger on that one, but
well, yeah, it's just so cool because can you tell a story about? You don't have to obviously give names. You can always give pseudonyms, but that's what we do on our stories. We give all the people pseudonyms, so they have the woodchuck and stuff like that. Do you have a story behind how? So the piece of paper, to describe it, it's like a nondescript piece of paper, and it has measurements on it, and on these measurements, it's not really clear exactly what they're for, but it says Chewbacca with a U, and I think Chris Georgoulias was suggesting that it was maybe for the hard copy dimensions. Let's actually quote Chris here. Yeah. In the Facebook page, he agrees with Steve Red, however you say Steve's last name, not Danley. And he says, it looks like the measurements of a first shot. The math at the bottom is the overall height of the figure. Note that he measures the disc, or the joint size, and subtracted that because it is an overlapping area of the leg and body. And then he is agreed with by other prototype expert Ben Sheehan. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, go take pictures of my collection, yeah.
What's so interesting about it, too, it's kind of hard to see, and I'll send you a photo for the podcast to put it up on there, but if you look very carefully, I kind of edited the photo to make it a little bit darker, but you could see the faint outline of almost looks like a leg or an arm, where somebody would have written up measurements down and then maybe scribbled their own little dissertation of what it would look like, or maybe on the phone and just doing a little scribble of what they were looking at after they wrote the measurements down. So it's kind of neat because you can tell it was something that wasn't meant to be kept. It was something that was probably supposed to be thrown away or entered into some sort of database or put on a more formalized piece of paper. So it's definitely interesting that it was kept, and not only that it was kept, but it's still preserved in the condition that it's in. That's why I wanted to share with the community, because I thought it was neat. I can't really get too much into the story of how I got it.
No, Steve and I are familiar with dealing with hyper overprotective collectors who find prototypes. That's as long as you've been collecting, we've been dealing with angry prototype finders. So,
can I? Relevant to the subject, but not relevant to Star Wars. Recently, I went on a find, and a lady had the original sketches for the what was it, Sean? The Care Bears.
Oh yeah, the patterns.
The original patterns, and I was interested in purchasing them, and she was interested in possibly doing a deal. She was a Kenner designer. She worked on a lot of girls' toys and whatnot. And when I said I wanted to buy them, her first question was, "Oh my God, is this illegal?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, these aren't technically mine to own. I've had these for 30 plus years. I don't want to be sued." And I said, there's tons of stuff like this that have been sold to other collectors. Nothing's going to come of it. It's not that big of a deal in the whole scheme of things. Needless to say, I said, think about it, get back with me, and, hopefully we can do a deal tomorrow. Also, the very next day, before I even wake up, a.k.a. 2 p.m.
11 o'clock, yeah.
And she leaves a voicemail, and she goes, "Hey, Ryan, this is so-and-so. I thought about it overnight, and you know what? I'm just really not comfortable with selling you these pieces. It's Sunday, and I'm headed to church, and when I get home from church, if you call me back, I won't answer until it's done. But when I get home, I feel more at peace in my mind by going home and taking those and ripping them up and throwing them away so that I don't feel like Kenner's going to come back on me. So sure enough, she tore them up, and they're gone for good because she was so worried that there was going to be some kind of legal ramifications for her selling those to me. So instead of selling them or even giving them to me, which technically she could have done, now a piece of Kenner history is now gone because she was so worried about it.
Wow. Well, can I give her a nickname? Can we call her the Zealot?
Just call her Care Bear.
Yeah, Care Bear. The Care Bear Zealot. Oh my God.
Call her Broken Heart.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Broken Heart.
Oh man.
Definitely not lucky.
No, but it's interesting because we've talked to people. One of the ways, and I think I might have mentioned this on. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you see my post that says, "Hey, if you or somebody you know works for Kenner, reach out to Ryan and me." Blah 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 blah. Because we use, Cincinnati is basically a pretty small town. It's like a big small city, I guess you could say.
Right.
Most people, a lot of people, there's like 2 or 3 degrees of separation. So a lot of the stuff that we've acquired over the last few years have come from, people that work there and family members that have worked there, where we have like a related contact in some sense, either a friend or relative or whatever. And it happened recently. Well, I guess it was about a year and a half ago. And we ended up some really good stuff from a guy who, what he told us, worked in, quote unquote, he called it the EP crib. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that terminology before. He called it the EP crib.
No. And here begins the saga of the EP crib.
And he had some good stuff, and he had been contacted before, but he was absolutely petrified because in the late 80s, I think it was late 80s, early 90s, the legal brass started sending out memos and different letters to everybody to, not sell any company property that you prosecuted and pay fines or be sued. And there's still a lot of people out there that have stuff, and they'll die with it, in my opinion, because they're so terrified of losing, everything that they've acquired in their life because of something they remember that was sent, 20, 25 years ago through a company memo with Kenner letterhead from the legal department. And I know some of the guys that have chased this stuff for a while. I'm sure they have stories that are similar to that, but there's a couple of the older people out there that still are holding on to things, and they'll never get rid of it because they're just absolutely so. And a lot of the stuff, honestly, probably has been destroyed because of that, which is sad. Ryan, you remember that guy's house you went to that owned the injection molding company? And he said, 6 months before you met with him, he had gone through and he had found, what was it, boxes, or do you remember what he had thrown out? Remember the guy over in Kentucky? We got an EP X-Wing from him, and remember that guy?
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Do you remember what he throw out? Do you remember what it was?
I forget exactly. I know he said I know that he had said that he had some miscarded figures that weren't painted on the cards, that he was just like, that these are probably dumb, pitch them. Which obviously are, mock-ups or whatever, full first shot
samples.
And did he say he'd just thrown them away that year or 20 years ago? 6
months prior, right?
I was gonna say a lot of the time it was a year or two ago. It's like, damn, why didn't we get a hold of you then? But I remember I actually bought the X-Wing I bought a Cloud car and an X-Wing from him only because there was weird writing on the bottom of the Cloud car, and he had said that the X-Wing was possibly the same stages of production, which would put it at an EP, not a first shot, because it was still marked. And upon getting home and looking at it and comparing to a production piece, the X-Wing, actually the shield, the cockpit canopy that's always missing, of course, was made out of a totally different type of plastic that's brittle, I don't even know what you would compare it to, like balsa wood. And it was actually most likely a bench shot cockpit canopy is what
is that what they called it? I don't. We had some other collectors look at it when they're in town, and I don't remember what the terminology they use, but it's definitely different.
But what was weird about it is that there was no writing on it. However, me being a clean freak, I like to clean everything, of course.
Oh no.
Don, don't mention the blue snaggle tooth.
Oh yeah, we got to bring that story up. You're getting called on that one. You guys ever seen First Shot's blue snaggle tooth?
Anyway.
All right.
Stick to the topic at hand instead of throw me under the bus in just a minute. So the X-wing, I was like, the canopy is obviously a different type of brittle plastic, and so on and so forth. And I was cleaning it. Well, the long yellow sticker that goes on the nose of the X-wing, if you're familiar, it's like 4 inches long or whatever.
Right.
Was peeling, and when I went to rub it with a towel, the whole thing peeled right off. It didn't break; it just peeled off because the glue was dry. And right under that sticker was a Sharpie marker written number 2. Boom. It's obviously an EP.
Huh.
But it had been hidden under the stickers. So there was no telling, what was written on it. So we did find a number 2 written on the X-wing, which is kind of cool, because you think it's one thing and then you find out that it's another.
Yeah.
In this guy's office for years, and he didn't care about him or anything, and that was kind of cool. But Sean, go ahead.
No. Before we get there, though, actually, I realized, Steve, have we ever even? Because we always have to imagine that there's some people listening who are newer collectors. Have we ever even explained what an EP is, Steve? Should we do a full-on?
We could do a recap. I know we did. I think, and it was years ago. I think it was the Greedo episode that Chris came on and gave a quick one. But yeah, I mean, it's been years, so why not?
Okay, so what is a engineering pilot? Who wants to describe it?
Here's my assumption. My assumption of an EP is that technically it's kind of a quality control piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think in essence, right? I mean, it's kind of, they're running the first production runs of a figure, and they're taking a batch and then basically marking them. That's my basic understanding. And just in terms of like the production process, they're kind of right at the cusp of figures being distributed. Right. But yeah. Well, yeah. And in terms of the vehicles, I hadn't really thought about vehicles so much. I'd seen the figures with the writing on the feet and all that. But yeah, with vehicles, that's a little different.
Okay, so Steve, you still haven't given a concise definition yet.
Sorry, that wasn't it.
Okay, an engineering pilot is a figure that's exactly the same as a production figure, except it has some marking on it that indicates that it was used to test either by children or by engineers to make sure that it would be a successful toy. Therefore, it's called an engineering pilot, and it's distinguished by a number on, if it's a character, it's usually on a foot. If it's a ship, it's usually on the bottom. And there's lots of scandal because you could easily fake them. And I wouldn't buy an engineering pilot just ever. But that's just me. Steve sold me one.
Well, that's why CFAs mean everything.
Yeah, we have a few in our collection. We know the stories behind them. We know the names attached to the stories, and we bought them directly. I think if anybody makes that investment or wants to add or go that route, they just make sure that all their ducks are in a row in terms of the story and the history or something like that. The guy I mentioned earlier that I had purchased from through actually as a family member that linked us up with him. He explained to me, because he worked in quote unquote what he called the EP crib. And you can edit this in post-production or whatever, but he said that his job was basically to climb up a ladder and break shit. So they would pull a lot of toys off the line. They'd open it up. They'd inspect the quality of it, or it would be sent over from a vendor in the Orient. They would look it over. A lot of times they would destroy it. So, he told me stories. He would climb a 6 or however 8-foot ladder, or whatever. And they would drop it, and they would have like an explosion zone where they'll stand around and watch some of the toys they knew were going to break and fly into parts. And we acquired a couple of EPs from him. We also got a couple bagged first shots that were, the vendor supplied prototypes also.
Well, one more thing too is that what's really cool about the Cloud Car EP, because you're explaining that basically it's a production piece ready to go out for sale. They just have to make sure it's right. Is that the Cloud Car we have, which I thought was really cool, is that they actually circled, Sean, if you remember, there was a bunch of little, not design flaws, but like little marking flaws within the mold that they had circled with a permanent marker, almost like where they broke it off with a screw or however it came out of the mold. they actually surface those with a permanent marker showing, okay, we need to, kind of get more detailed with how this looks when it comes out of the mold or whatever. That was kind of cool too on the Cloud car that there was markings like that, and also the EP of the Cloud car is sonic welded together, but the feet that it stands on were never installed.
Oh. Huh.
Well, I mean,
so it's a Cloud car that's even more useless.
Can't even land. Well, when I was saying I would never buy an engineering pilot, I think were I you guys, I would have no problem buying them from people who theoretically would have actually sold them. I was thinking more of the kind of secondary market. But you've actually said, are you saying the EP Crip? The EP Crip?
Crib.
Or
like
the
a crib,
EP
like a baby
Crib?
crib.
Okay, so then what's in
like a baby crib?
Okay, so you're not a West Coast gangbanger. I'm an EP Crip.
Nah.
Crenshaw
No,
third.
and I had never heard the terminology. I had
Well,
never heard that
you
terminology
going back.
before.
I'm going back to my crib. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Okay. So what is an EP Crib?
That's basically what he did. That's what he told me he did. He worked it with I don't exactly know his title. He didn't have any business cards. He had told me like 3 or 4 times, but I was excited about making the deal, so I didn't listen probably as well as I should have. But I could reach out to him and figure out what his exact title was. But he said there was a handful of them. I think honestly he worked more like the quality control side, just based off the history and kind of stories he told me. But I believe the EP Crib might have been more or less where I don't know if that was the title they gave the area where they broke the stuff, or where they would bring the room that they would pull the stuff off the line or get the vendor supplied prototypes and keep everything. But yeah, I'd never heard that terminology used before, and I did a quick search and I couldn't find anything. So
yeah, I definitely.
It'd be interesting if any of the other guys that have been hunting it for a long time, like Ron or Chris or CJ or any of those guys, had heard that before either.
Okay, so have you ever heard of an EP Crib? And Steve, you're out in the West Coast, so if you ever meet an EP Pyru or whatever, maybe
that's like a password for Kenner people. Like, hey man, EP Crib.
Yeah.
Oh, let me show you the good stuff.
Yes.
Wouldn't that be amazing? And I just gave it away to everybody. Oh
did.
No.
We ain't let them folks change our vocabulary. Change our vocabulary.
Sapporo, Frosty, MIB, MOJ, CMYKUC. It's vintage.
Okay, Space Freaks, it is now time to end the saga of the EP Crib. I got the following message from Sean after we recorded. I confirmed what the EP Crib was. I spoke to another contact today, and he started laughing when I brought up the EP Crib. It was where the engineers would do their own drop tests and other quality control braking outside of the traditional Kenner standard. They would apply different amounts of force to the items. If it broke, it would be considered a sharp edge and would fail when put through the testing protocol of quality control. If it was poorly constructed and came apart with less than 10 pounds of force, then parents may complain that the toy wasn't well made. And in this message, he also included a photo that I've used throughout the entire episode of them. And it's them together with the wife of the EP Crib master who used Care Bear fabric to make an octopus. And you can see that on top of their heads, and it's pretty funny. So, there concludes the EP Crib. Dang it, I mean the EP Crib.
Hey, Sean.
What?
Just a random thought. The one thing you didn't mention was, I think we get most excited when we talk to somebody and they say Kenners.
Oh yeah, Kenners.
And
why do they say Kenners?
If somebody says Kenner, then it's like, okay, they might be an employee or whatever. But the minute they say Kenners, it's like it just hits that note in your head, like, okay, I want to talk to this person.
Huh.
Yeah, so I mean, I could be completely wrong on this. And honestly, after this episode, you should go back and have, like, Chris G in the right-hand corner like they do on ESPN, fact-checking everything we discussed.
Oh, don't worry, he does that anyway. Even if we don't want him to, he does
Yeah, no, he's already...
Yeah, exactly. Or have Gus. Gus is I think Gus would be, like, a good TV personality. I don't remember, what was the question, Ryan? I don't remember what you just asked me. I went off on a tangent.
Kenners.
Oh, so basically like.
Oh, Kenners. Yeah. So if you look at like the old, if you look at the old like catalogs and it's just a lot of like the internal Kenner stuff from the '60s, it says Kenners with apostrophe S. So it's like Kenner apostrophe S. And it's interesting because every time we talk to somebody or we have a lead or whatever, and they say Kenners, it's like I always look at that little S, like visually I visualize like a little money sign in my mind, like, oh, this person's money, you know, they got awesome stuff because they said Kenners. Because 9 times out of 10, if they say Kenners, they work there.
Right.
It's absolutely amazing to me.
That's interesting.
Well, it's awesome to have to be able to have so much. Because everyone else that we've interviewed, well, not everybody, because we interviewed a bunch of people from Cincinnati as well. But it's cool having this sort of growing up Kenner and sort of figuring out how to read all these signs. This is I think we should probably have you guys back on again, because it sounds like you're going to keep coming up with cool new stories. But first the big question, okay? So
okay.
I started a collection. Obviously, I've been collecting for a long time, but my kids, Sean and Ryan, they both love Ewoks, and so Jordan inspired you to look for prototypes, and you guys inspired me to try something that I think is the craziest damn idea I've ever had, which is I give them Ewoks. Like, I get Ewok stuff, like, storyboards and carded figures, and I'm eventually going to get them pre-production stuff, down the line when they're at least teenagers. But I give it to them to have at the same time, and I think that's totally crazy. It'll never work. 2 people can't own one thing. But then I think, well, hey, the Lehmkuhls do it. So how in the world do you guys share some? And you guys don't sound like hippies. You sound like you're pretty, capitalistic folk. How do you share a toy?
Can I answer this, Sean?
Sure.
How do we share? Because growing up, we didn't share anything. And, we kind of learned over time that, Sean's 2 years older than I am, and him having a family and me not being married kind of grew us apart. And not to be all sentimental and teary-eyed about this, but
go for it.
In the same instance, this has kind of made us grow together as brothers and brought us to a point of equality, I guess, and like something in common. And so we have that kind of knowledge from each other that, like, okay, this is something we do together. This is what we do together. This is what keeps us close as brothers. This is what we share, that we have in common other than our outside everyday lives. And so because we cherish what the meaning behind it is, that's why the ownership of the items don't matter as much. And I feel like because we have our own jobs in how we get these toys and collect these pieces, I'm not going to lie, Sean's the financier, okay?
Okay.
He puts the money up.
Leave this part for the IRS, please.
Well, my point is, Sean puts the money up. I do the digging and the, digging through silverfish and cockroaches and a pile of, rat crap in the corner of a box where I found a vinyl cave Jawa. I do all the digging, and he knows that I know what to look for. I'm smart enough with my offers on the pieces that I buy, and that I don't just squander the money, I guess you'd say, and that he can trust me. And because we have that trust, whereas he trusts me with financially, I trust him that he'll keep putting the lures out there to get stuff to come to us, and he trusts me with his money, saying that, okay, here's my money, be smart with it, don't waste it. And so because we have that respect toward each other and we're brothers, that has actually made us, I think, trust each other more and kind of be open with each other. And once again, it's cool to, and I can remember this like yesterday when I showed up at Sean's house with a box, and he's like, "You find anything good?" And I remember opening up the case, and I pulled out a vinyl cave Jawa, and he's like, "Oh my God!" I was like, "Dude, I know." And I can't tell you what I paid for it because you would
No, you can tell it. You can tell it. I've shared it online because you made it
so,
guy before you put your hand in it.
So I was at this guy's house, or this guy's mom's house. His mom was moving, digging in the basement, bunch of $6 Million Man, G.I. Joe stuff from the 70s and 60s. So it was dirty as all heck, disgusting. There was nothing really of value per se without spending hours of cleaning. And digging through boxes. He's getting ready to throw a box to the corner. He's like, all right, that one's all empty. I'm like, no, that's all something real quick. Hold on, bring it back over here. He puts it back on his ping pong table in his parents' basement. And I'm digging through the corner of the box, and there's a pile of literal rat poop. And I see something brown, and I pick at it before I get it under my fingernail. Disgusting.
It's more rat poop.
I pull out a Bono Cape Dawa.
Wow.
And, of course, I acted cool about it. He's like, well, that's disgusting. And I'm like, how much you want for it? He's like, give me $5. I'm like, done.
Wow.
So
I feel like you earned that one because you risked getting the Black Plague. So
yeah.
But I mean, it's fines like that there's a lot of times when we'll pay honestly really close to retail, but then there's those far
or sometimes over retail, right, Ryan?
Shut up. But my point is it's those moments when you're like, oh, it's like eureka! I found something that, and I think for me it was more the excitement when Sean called me. Because Sean, honestly, dude, I'll go to a find. I'll be there for 5 minutes. They'll start calling me every 5 minutes saying, "You find anything yet? You find anything yet? You find anything yet?" And I was like,
well, Ryan's gone to some really sketchy places too. So like sometimes he has to check in with me to make sure he's not dead. As horrible as that sounds, I'm being serious.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There's been some bad
occupational hazards.
Yes,
no, it's not like it was on
gets
TV.
Real,
Ryan,
really quick. I've noticed that
when
I go there.
It's not like it's on TV. Yeah,
nothing has put me in immediate danger, but there's a chance that if the FBI came in, I could be put in the part of that and then arrested. Because there was one house that honestly I apologize, but it was honestly probably most likely a meth house.
Wow.
And I bought a bunch of toys there, and of course I'm just like, you guys do what you want, so I just want toys,
Yeah.
So that's just me. I'm just like, I don't care what they do with their lives. I'm there to get one thing and one thing only. And
the worst thing is when you ask to wash your hands at somebody's house after digging through their toys, and it's better just to leave with dirty hands than to actually use the kitchen.
Yeah, because the water was muddy.
Wow. Well, so it sounds like you guys like just have a good system and you found a way to share. I mean, if you listen to the podcast every month, we credit my brother as doing the technical stuff on the show. He hasn't worked on the show in probably 3 or 4 years. I mean, he doesn't do anything, but he's still on there because when I really started collecting like vintage stuff, and he helped me start my website about Chewbacca, that was the same thing. Like, I wasn't married, he was, and like we could like be connected as brothers even though we were growing apart in our lives, like through this shared love of toys and just total goofiness. So yeah, it's
oh yeah, 100%. And our parents think we're insane.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they do.
My poor mother calls me on a daily basis, like, you need to have Ryan come over here and clean out the garage. I've been asking this for 3 months.
Oh,
and I'm like, yeah, I'll call him. And I call him. He goes, oh yeah, I'll take care of it tomorrow. Ryan, is the garage clean yet?
Nope. And her favorite thing to say, there's still like one of those play school Ewok huts in there and stuff. But her favorite thing to say is, you need to stop buying, start selling.
Yeah.
Well, what's my response always, Ryan?
We're not going to make it again, Mom. We have to buy it while it's still available.
Not going to make it
that's
again.
Right.
That's funny. Well, before we get
they're not making any more of it.
But before we get to the lightning round, I don't want to leave the audience hanging. We were promised, because the other thing is, because I have 3 brothers, I love brothers busting each other's nut balls all the time. So what is the story about the blue snaggletooth?
Oh, right.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I lived – you want to hear the long story or the short story?
Whichever you think is the most entertaining.
All right, so I'll tell you how I got it, because Craigslist at this point is pretty much dead, and I can't remember the last time I've gotten anything good from Craigslist. But I was working a lot in Louisville, and I think at this time I'd moved back to Cincinnati, where I live now. And I was driving home. I was stopped at a rest stop because I had to, use the bathroom. And as I'm walking, I check Craigslist on my phone, and I see a blue snaggletooth posted, and it is just absolutely horrible condition. Almost all the paint's off the boot. There's some paint on the head, but it's rough. So I look at it, didn't think too much about it, leave the rest stop, got to get back in my car. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to call the guy. Because he got it listed for $50, and this was 4 or 5 years ago. So it was probably about, retail price for one in that bad of shape. And I get him on the phone, and I said, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that blue snaggletooth? And he goes, oh, it's a first shot. I'm like, what? And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, I saw the one on eBay for $3,000 that guy from Cincinnati is selling, but mine's in really, really bad shape, so I think $50 is more than fair. I said, well, does it have any markings on the back? He said, no. And well, when can I meet you? And he says, well, I can meet in about 30, 40 minutes. So luckily, it all kind of, the stars aligned. I met with him on the way back from, he lived in northern Kentucky. I met with him on the way back to Cincinnati and pulled into this parking lot. He pulls it out. I look at it. It looked good to me. I couldn't really tell at the time. I was excited. It's a $50 first shot blue snaggletooth, and he just wanted to get rid of it. And I started talking to him. He said, yeah, I listened earlier today. He goes, it's funny. You're the third person that called me. And I asked him, I said, what happened with the other two people? And the first one, the guy had to think about it. The second one was a toy dealer in Dayton, Ohio that offered him $40 for it. And I was the only one that said, I'll pay you $50 and meet you right now. And so that's how we ended up with it. And sure enough, it was the first shot. And so I bring it home to Ryan.
Here we go.
I'm so excited, right? Because it is just dumb luck. And I show it to him, and honestly, it's just as much my fault because I didn't really go online and research it. We were relatively new to the pre-production stuff. And
I'm going to cut you off, Sean. Keep in mind that I'm a neat freak. I like to clean everything to make everything look perfect. Sean, go ahead.
Okay.
Except for stuff in the parents' garage. But so I give it to Ryan. I'm like, what do you think about this? We're both excited. So he's like, well, I'm going to clean a little bit. I didn't really think anything about it. So he goes home and he sends me a picture. And the picture is, and I'll send you guys a photo of it. So it's of a bald blue snaggletooth with completely blue legs. And I text him and I go, what the beep happened to it? And he called me back. He's like, I don't know, man. I put it in hot water and the paint just fell off and it was floating around. I think it's so much cooler like this.
That's not what I said. I said it looked like
you did.
It looked nice again.
Well, no. So you purposely got the paint off of it.
Well, if I didn't admit it then, I might as well admit it.
Oh, my Lord. All right, Ryan's booted immediately from all the Facebook pages. Everybody listening.
Yeah.
It wasn't on purpose. This was, before I knew about,
Yeah.
So basically he just like Lady Macbeth did, he just cleaned it so much it just fell off, or he intentionally was taking it off?
Yeah. Well, the story he told me is it floated to the surface.
Well, I'm pretty sure that it was hand-painted because the paint chipped right off.
Well, obviously.
Wow.
I'm a nail biter. I'm a nail biter, I'll admit it. And so my nails aren't sharp, so I can easily scratch things off without leaving a mark. So I was just like, oh, cool, the silver paint comes right off. It looks like crap anyway. Might as well take it all off.
Oh, dude, you're killing me.
Well, it's probably still worth $50.
You guys are witnessing the ending of a brother partnership right here.
You have to understand.
The good news is we still own it. We still own it and display it proudly.
Well, yeah, we do. I mean, it's one of those things we're never going to sell. It's the thing about the way we collect is the story is just as much a part of the collecting as the actual items that we get, and that's the interactions like kind of what we're talking about now. Like I'm going to curse right now and hang up, but it's the history and it's just kind of how we acquired things and the stories behind them that I think is so important about collecting. What's so nice about the hobby we're in, it doesn't matter if you buy it from a friend that you've made that lives, 5,000 or 6,000 miles away across the world, or if it's somebody that locally. Everybody gets things different ways, and there's no really one right way to add to your collection. That's what's so cool about this hobby, because everybody goes about it in different ways.
And one more thing based on those stories. I got to tell one more quick story. I'm sorry. It's just
oh, no.
It's an important one.
Okay.
No, it's not that. This is how we acquired a Vinyl Cave Jawa still sealed in the bubble, but the card is pretty much all but gone. but the card is still sealed and there's no openings in the bubble. And we acquired that because we had met with a guy years ago, and we acquired, 157 Kenner Baggy...
147.
For 147 Kenner Baggy Tebows.
Wow.
And it was in a Kroger bag from the 80s.
So your children would have gone nuts over it.
Yes.
It was pretty amazing.
It was ridiculous. And we were at a toy show, probably the first or second toy show we'd ever done. And a guy that we know happened to have that, and we got talking to him, and what can we trade you? Can we buy that? This and that. He's like, well, it's not really for sale. I'm kind of like fishing around for offers. And then we pulled out a bag of 147 Kenner Baggy Tebows, and he's like, I would take that. And I was like, really? I'm like, Sean, what do you think? Looking back in retrospect, probably a bad trade on our part.
No, not at all, man. A cut cart vinyl tape Jawa. That was the first vinyl tape Jawa we ever had in our collection.
Right.
I remember driving home and staring at it. I was about to crash on the highway.
Now, that's a good question. Would you trade 147 Tebows for one cut card vinyl tape Jawa?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would do it. And we actually that wasn't a full trade. We had acquired a bunch of sealed 7-packs for Return of the Jedi, and we threw one of those into the deal too. So it was 147 Tebows plus a sealed Return of the Jedi Villains 7-pack mailer, still sealed.
But
and I would do it again because you know what? It's in terrible shape, but we have a carded vinyl tape Jawa.
Yeah.
And the best part is, the way we got the Tebows was we based the price we paid on the weight.
That's nice. How much is a kilo of Tebow? How much is a kilo of Tebow?
Yeah.
Right, basically. So it was still a good deal for us versus what we paid versus the value. But once again, it was cool to say, hey, Sean, we actually have a vinyl tape Jawa. Oh my God. So
and
it was one of those things where it's like.
The nice thing too about the blue snaggletooth story is I forget what episode it is, but Steve and I shared the story of the people who accidentally graded a telescoping Luke.
That's right.
So you're gonna have to work a lot harder to have a story that makes you groan. We have to go back and listen to my good friend Tom Quinn tell the story about it's still so funny.
My God.
It's still so funny. So
the pain is real.
Yeah, but that blue snaggletooth could be like a great, will always be more valuable and less valuable. You know what I mean? It'll always be more meaningful, less valuable.
Oh yeah,
that is in that shape.
Right.
But Steve and I, we definitely need to have you guys on more to tell more stories because your stories are awesome and they're fun and they're unexpected. I didn't expect them to be this much fun. But we do need to move on to our I know you have more, so we're going to have to get more. But we need to do a lightning round now. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay. Wait, we can start with Ryan or me?
We'll do one for each of you. So
all right, cool.
So I'll ask the same question to both of you, and if you need time to answer it, it's okay because I can just edit out your pauses. So don't worry if you go I don't know. Okay. What is your favorite bad line from a Star Wars movie?
Ooh.
Now,
I thought it smelled bad on the inside.
Okay.
Or on the outside. On the outside. I ruined it. See? It's so bad I ruined it. And I thought it smelled bad on the outside. That's the best.
Favorite bad line?
Yes.
Oh, God. I'm thinking.
Just so you know, mine used to be Pilot Land over there by that assembly area. My new favorite bad line from the Star Wars movie is Gullet. That may actually be my favorite set of syllables in the world. Do you have one, Ryan?
I honestly probably would have to say, I love you. I know.
All right. Very controversial choices as lines. Okay. Now, we actually haven't really got too specific with exactly what items you collect. I mean, I get the sense that you're not focus collectors, so maybe you don't have one. But what is each of your Grail items that you're looking for? Let's start this one with Ryan.
I'd probably have to say a piece that we sold because we needed to get more finances to buy more collections. And Sean knows exactly what I'm talking about. It was a Empire Strikes Back action display stand in the box.
Wow. And so you sold that, but getting it back is your Grail.
Yeah, honestly, if I could get the exact same one back, even though that the left side flaps were totally gone, I think looking back, that was like the one piece, because I got so excited that I even contacted Steve Sansweet about it because I knew that it was a rare piece. And it was accidentally purchased for basically nothing because Sean thought it was mouse-eaten garbage. And,
it was. It had water damage, too.
It
sat on my garage floor for 3 months.
Oh, man.
And we sold
I didn't know what it was. We had just gotten back into it. So this was like the second, I think this is the second buy we ever did. I went to a guy's house. And,
yeah, Sean spent $500 in the lot and was like basically choking on his own spit because he thought he had just totally blown his money on nothing.
No, my wife was really upset with me because it was in the garage. She came home from work and it looked horrible.
But looking back, the hard piece to find, and I honestly would love to have that exact piece. I honestly wouldn't even want one in better condition. I would want that exact same piece just because it's kind of brought us, in a way, it's kind of like helped, give us crutches to be where we are now.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, it did.
All right, Sean, how about you?
Rocket firing fat, L slot, unpainted.
Okay.
It's just, I mean, it's amazing to me. I've talked to people that have them, and the thing that drives me absolutely insane, and other guys that have talked to Kenner people or people that have them is, oh yeah, I have one of those. It's my safe deposit box at the bank. And my response is always, that's fine if you're going to keep it, but for the love of God, please display it. Please have it somewhere in your house that has a meaning to it, that you can look at it and people will look at it and enjoy it. Don't keep it in a safe deposit box in the dark. Please do not do that.
Yeah.
So that's always what I kind of say to them when they give me that line.
Okay. All right. Now.
But yeah, that's the Grail.
Okay. Now, where do you keep the collection? Is it in Sean's or Ryan's house?
It's in my parents' house.
Oh wow. Okay. So if
and the thing, well, we both have. So I have some of the collection in my house displayed, and then Ryan has some at his house as well. But it's funny. I know we're doing lightning round. I have a quick story. When I started dating my wife, first time I introduced her to my parents, my mom said, "Hey, you should bring her down and show her your collection in the basement." And I hadn't told her at the time because I liked her so much, and I was like terrified what her response would be. And she's like, "What's down there?" And I didn't want to tell her, so she went down. And she looked at it. She goes, "I think it's really cool that you enjoy this. I think nerds are hot." And I knew right then and there we were going to make babies and have a family together. So it all worked out.
That's awesome.
And the good news is, in high school, every time I brought a girl downstairs, I tell them it was my brother's.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Okay, so if all of your collection were in one room and it suddenly caught fire and you could only grab one item, what item would you take?
First of all, I'd yell at Ryan for smoking in the house. Second off, I would grab the yaks. We have this in our loose collection that we share. We've got a yak face, and the reason it's special to me is because we only have one grandparent that's still alive, and my grandma Mabel, who growing up, my parents always gave us the world, but it's not like we had a ton of money. So when we were 13, 11, the one figure we always wanted that we couldn't afford was a yak face. That was, at that time in our life, that was the Grail. And my parents went up to Trader's World with us one day, and Don Gibbs, on the back of his business card, wrote, "I have a yak face coming tomorrow," and then wrote, I think he may have wrote the price on that. We still have the card in our collection.
$175.
Well, yeah, I have a yak face coming, $175. So my parents went back up the next day. We were distracted, and my grandma, with the Christmas money that she would have given toward us, a gift for us that year, my parents bought that yak face, and we opened it. And I remember my grandma gave it to us. That was our joint Christmas present that year, and it was that yak face. And it's important to us because when my grandma's not going to live forever. She's in her 90s, and I love her to death. But she, that's one of the things I remember. I can't remember any other gift she's given me, but I remember that gift, and
awesome.
So that's important to me. And the fact that we have the card where he slipped it to my parents right behind our backs is so cool.
Yeah,
that
that's
my
great.
parents kept that, and it has the handwritten price and everything on it with the business card.
Awesome. How about you, Ryan?
Well, I'm not going to second that, even though I agree with him. I think another, I can't go for. I'm not going to go for value. I'm going to go for significance for memories. I honestly would have to say the next best thing, other than the Yak Base, would probably be the Death Star gunner.
Awesome. So that's a similar like connection that you had.
Well, that was the Power of the Force figure we found in the shoebox in my parents' basement.
Oh right, all right. At the beginning of the interview. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Our gears kind of turning on the whole thing.
Right. Awesome. And then the final question is the one that usually takes the most thought. So this is a existential question. You have to look into yourself and see. You have to look into the mirror and see past the face and into the soul. Okay. If you were a vintage Star Wars item of memorabilia or toys, whatever. If you were a vintage Star Wars item, which one would you be? Not which one would you like to be, but if you had to describe your essence, your soul, yourself as a vintage Star Wars toy or memorabilia, what would you be?
I would say an AT-AT because it's probably the most durable toy.
Okay.
My son plays with it all the time, so I'm always, my son's name is Luke, by the way.
Okay.
I somehow got that one past my wife. But I would say an AT-AT. I think it's a durable toy. It's the most well-designed toy, in my opinion, out there. Has the most play value. Sometimes it gets a few screw looses like me,
right.
missing a couple parts, as I get older. I just love it. I just think it's it's striking. It's, you can almost give it some sort of like personification as like a dog or some sort of animal.
Right.
And the fact that, no spoilers, but, something similar was seen in a recent movie.
Oh, no, we're
I
spoiling
just feel like
everything. No worries about that.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I think the timeless design of it is so multifunctional, and it's just amazing. And I said a lot, didn't I?
No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about it. It's funny. I'm tempted to go upstairs and grab it. I have it right on the first floor. My kid to play with. My wife yelled at him tonight because he's trying to rip off the chin guns and hide them under the couch like he typically does. That's why they're always missing too. It's interesting when you have young children that you let play with complete vintage, vehicles, and I don't want to play with the weapons, but the vehicles I do, and every single piece that has. Yeah, that you see him parceled out on eBay for ridiculous prices are the pieces that he rips off and hides under the couch of the chair.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I would be an AT-AT. Sorry, I get completely off track when I answer questions.
It's all good. Okay, and how about you, Ryan?
Honestly, I would say that I would be the fortune teller Yoda.
Okay. Wow, no one's ever said that before.
Because I've gone a lot of different directions in my life, but I think the fortune teller Yoda started to be sentimental. But my brothers kind of kept me on my toes, and kind of always like showed me the way of like doing the Force, and kind of gives me the aim to go in the right direction. Even if I may not always listen to it, he's at least gives me the right advice. And so I think that maybe the fortune teller Yoda because it's Yoda. It's the most, I guess, level-headed being in the galaxy. And in my galaxy, the most level-headed being would probably be my brother.
Oh, my, you have a messed up galaxy you live in. Good Lord.
I have no idea.
So you're saying I'm small, I have a spinal back problem, I have poor posture, and I'm extremely old and wise. I appreciate it.
Wow, awesome. Well, listen, this has been very great. I totally feel like I understand who the hell you guys are. I think a lot of people are going to be really happy to hear this because it's just really cool to hear newer voices. I mean, not really that new, but newer than newer than a lot of people we have on, first time on, but definitely not the last. And if you ever just want to like tell a story, you can even just come on and just tell a story for 5 minutes and just go off, because it's cool hearing what's going on out there.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for
yeah, our pleasure. We love telling stories. You got to next time we talk, you got to get some of Ryan's wacky and crazy stories.
Oh, we absolutely
about little adventures I send him on. Trust me, some of the ones that he's got stories of are shocking to say the least. But
absolutely will.
Baby, if you've ever wondered whatever became of me, I'm living on the air in Cincinnati, WKRP.
Well, Steve, sometimes when we do an interview, I think it's going to be great, and it ends up being not that interesting. And sometimes we do an interview, and I don't know what to expect, and it's just outstanding. That interview was so great.
Yeah, no, those guys are a lot of fun, and just hearing the whole brother connection actually was really... I have a lot of connection to that, too. My younger brother and I kind of shared our collection growing up, but we didn't stick together on it, but he still loves it. But it was just great to hear something that was so similar to me, and yeah, it was a really, really, really fun conversation.
Yeah, that was super fun. So I think we can get into the meat of the show, Steve. Basically, we're already through the meat.
Yeah, so
is this like a double
lettuce?
Double? This is like a
yeah,
double
maybe.
Double.
All right.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So they were the first patty of a double, and then now we're going to get to the second patty, which is essentially all of our normal features.
Yes.
Right. So
yeah.
Let's just go through them quickly, because we don't need to spend super long amount of time. Because,
no.
Because really that interview lasted a lot longer, and I really could have kept going. I mean, I could have just kept going, because I could tell they have so many good stories. And man, I got to tell you, because the thing is, to me, right, is like, I just didn't know who they were, and so it's just great. They're just like, hey, this is who we are, and they're not like aggressive about it, but they're just who they are. I don't know,
great.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we listen to a nugget?
'Tis a nugget from the archive. 'Tis a nugget.
Oh my God, they're gorgeous.
From the archive.
You are like obsessed with this Meccano catalog thing. I don't understand like what it is. I don't understand why you're obsessed with it.
Okay.
What is this thing that you're talking about?
All right. So in terms of finding stuff for Leia Boushh, it was a little tough on the archive, but one of my favorite things I remembered from years back that I just completely forgot about was this image from a 1983 Meccano catalog that has, the whole run of the 65 back characters, and a lot of them are like early versions. So you have the infamous Luke in Jedi robes that is painted brown, that whole thing, and then you have...
We've talked about that on several episodes.
Yes.
And then Klaatu is called Woof.
Woof, and you have
yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the two Ewoks that are blanked out with the question marks. But then you have this other figure that is not labeled. It's got the question mark on it, and it leads into that whole thing you would make sense. Like, yeah, you don't want to spoil it being Leia, but then you do. Anyway, it just made me laugh because the silhouette is so over the top and obscure. It looks nothing like what you would think the figure would look like. It has these crazy antenna, and it looks like the same size as an Ewok almost. But
right,
what it was for Leia.
So once again, I'm going to have to. Steve is just going
translate.
I'm going to translate.
Yeah.
Just say things a lot more clearly because I'm a
Thank
teacher.
you.
Okay, so this is an image of all the 65 back figures, and most of them are hard copies or pre-production figures, and first shots. And so you have the Luke in the unproduced brown color, the Luke and Jedi robes.
Yep.
And the great thing is, in this group shot, they have the traditional two Ewoks blacked out. So if you have a 65A back, which is one of the most common Return of the Jedi card backs, they blurred out Chirpa and other Ewok. Who's the other
Ewok?
Logray. Chirpa and Logray, right? So they blocked them out so that people didn't see them before the movie, which is funny because these days, like, everyone would know what an Ewok is like a year beforehand. Right. But they're trying to keep the suspense.
Yeah.
Earlier in this very episode, we talked about, well, why did they show Princess Leia was Boushh if Kasdan and Lucas were deciding to keep it as a secret?
Right.
Well, this is an indicator that at the early stages, they were probably going to actually black out Boushh as well.
Yeah, right. So it's interesting, where it fits into that puzzle, and this is just a stupid side note, but when I saw this thing, the first thing I thought of was that terrible early 90s movie, Spaced Invaders, about those dumb Martians that land in, like, Iowa or something, but this, like, silhouette looks like it would be one of those characters.
Yeah, and so the silhouette looks like they took an Ewok with its 2 ears, cut it in half, and then put Leia Boush's legs on it.
Right.
It really does not. You know what? This would be a good vintage T-shirt if you wanted to really confuse people.
Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't look like anything.
Yeah.
So, Steve, that is absolutely a great nugget from the archive, and it's not a nugget that's worth money. It's a nugget that is knowledge.
Exactly.
Okay? Just Leia Boushh, probably because the Logray and Sherpa were not shipped with the rest of the 65 A-backs, right?
I guess that would make sense. And then once they're out in the open, there they are on the back of the card back.
Right. So
for
then,
the beat. Yeah.
It's possible that they would have done that with Boushh. I've never heard that before. I've never seen the evidence of it. If you know more about it, respond to our Facebook page or YouTube page, or just don't. Just contact us. Steve, I've started paying more attention to our Facebook messages, so maybe just message us through Facebook.
Yes.
Because I'm apparently giving up and just kissing Mark Zuckerberg on the mouth every single day. I just take him by his zip-down hoodie, and I just say, "Mwah," because I'm just giving all my money to him. I don't know when this turned into homoerotic fanfic, but it did.
It's all right, Leo.
It did. I can't help it. The man works out. He speaks Chinese. He's a great guy. Now, how about the unloved items?
You don't hate, only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. The unloved and the unnatural.
Okay. So, as I was saying, the stuff with Boushh is a little tough to find on the archive, but one thing that, you know how much I love Sigma stuff. I think we've talked about it many times before, but something I hadn't really given much attention to was this line of Sigma ceramic figures that they did for Return of the Jedi. They're just basic statues. And they did one for Boushh, and it is like the most docile, like, calm iteration of the character I've ever seen. Like, it is not threatening in any way. Like, usually when you think of this character, you think of the thermal detonator, you think of, kind of badassness. And this, it's just so different. And I don't know, I just thought that, why not?
Yeah, it's true because I feel like Boushh was included in a lot of imagery affiliated with the movie.
Right.
But it does seem to be kind of a split between having the helmet on and having the helmet off.
Yeah.
Because it's sort of like, hey, we only have one female in our entire thing.
Universe.
Cover her up so you don't even know she's female.
Right. Yeah.
She looks kind of dopey, actually, on this box. She's kind of like, Diane, I'm here.
I don't know if you've seen any of the others in this line, but they all look kind of dopey. It's just funny. Like,
I don't understand what these are. So they were figures?
Yeah, I mean they're just ceramic little figurines, and they're all very simple in design and also like stature. Like they don't have any. They're not very dynamic at all, and they're not weird enough to be Sigma, like for the Empire Strikes Back kind of stuff. Like these are just so. I don't know. Like they seem like Christmas ornaments or something. That's the kind of vibe I get.
That you can't hang on a tree.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's like the worst definition of a toy. It's like a Christmas ornament that you can't hang on a tree. Because Christmas ornaments are always like really lame toys, but you can hang them on a tree.
Yeah, I mean they still have that going for them.
One thing I really enjoy is the Emperor one. Because usually when the Emperor is sitting, it's the Emperor sitting in his throne. But he looks like an old man. Like, he's sitting down, he looks like he just said, like, oh, Christ. And, like, he looks like he's about to, like, stick his hand down the waistband of his sweatpants.
No.
He's like, oh, Jesus, I use pork rinds.
Yeah. Oh, my God, you are so right.
That's an amazing picture. This is why you got to watch the show on YouTube or watch the enhanced version, people. Because seeing the look on his face, he's just
you need this.
Yeah.
You need this for the, what is your Emperorium of the thing?
Mr. Palpatorium's fully armed and operational Emperorium.
Yes, that.
Yes, I do need that. If anyone knows where one is, send me a message on Facebook.
Yeah.
Should I start talking about about my love affair with Mark Zuckerberg? No, I'll keep going.
Let's keep going.
Okay. I don't think we have a market watch, do we?
I have a brief one, if you want. What Mike's been doing is kind of a retrospective on the figures that we missed. So what I thought we could do is I pulled 2 items for each of the last 3 figures. So I have 2 Luke Jedis, 2 Akbars, and 2 Boushes.
I love it, Steve. Let's keep going.
All right.
This episode started off a little bit jittery, and I feel like we've really hit our stride. $1 Flicks. Market Watch.
Okay, so now do you just want me to just feed you the information, or do you want to try and even do a guess? What do you want to do here?
Oh yeah, it's always good to do a guess. And I think what we'll do is, if it's foreign, I have to get it within 100.
Okay.
If it's domestic, I have to get it within 20.
All right.
And if it's prototype or display, I have to get it within 1,000.
That sounds fair.
And that's me getting it. Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna call this the Return of the Jedi Market Watch Brisbane medley.
How about a 3-pack?
That works too. All right. So Luke Jedi.
Yes.
Up first, we have a 65A carded figure that is not graded. It looks to be in quite nice shape overall. The bubble is yellow, but there is one added detail, and that this is part of Rick Springfield's collection. So that's a little different.
And it's sold?
It is sold. Yeah.
It did sold?
It did sold. It did sold, Skye.
It did sold. Okay, now I know that my good buddy Rick commands quite a premium.
Yes.
I'm going to say 400.
750.
Wow. With the yellow bubble?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, with the
Do we mark that as a victory? No. Okay.
Nah,
Next one.
All right, up
700
next.
for Rick Springfield's Luke. All right.
Yes. Okay, so the second Luke is a loose figure that is a graded AFA 80. It has the blue lightsaber and a snap cape.
Oh my God, Steve! How would I know this? Oh my God, how would you expect me to know this? How should I know that?
This is the fun of it for me, because
yeah, Adam Carolla fans will get that one. How in the world would I know that? Blue, I don't know. Some nut job out there spent $150.
$175. There you go. You're like, there you go.
I said within 20. Within 25.
I'd say that this counts. That's
okay.
Good. Yeah. All right. So up next we have our favorite fish guy. First is a carded 65B, which is ungraded, but it looks really, really nice. It's unpunched. The bubble is clear. Looks to be in very, very good shape.
Okay, unbunched, bubbles clear, really good. I would say 190.
155. So hey, not quite, but that's yeah.
Okay, well, that's pretty good. That's it's a high price for a popular character. Okay.
Yeah.
Next one for.
All right. So up next. Up next, we have a AFA graded 75 mailer. So this is the mail away. It has the white box, the figure in the baggie, the little flyer that says Revenge of the Jedi, the little flyer about the figure, and the collection catalog that has the Hoth battle scene. But it's graded in as one kind of long framed piece.
Okay, so 48 Bs and 48 Cs, you'd send it away, and you get one of these. Okay? I didn't mean that to rhyme. I regret it instantly. I can't stop, Steve. Oh, somebody help me.
I think it's time for you to do another, what am I thinking of? Your Ugnut.
Oh, yeah.
Slam. Yeah. Don't. I didn't say that. Just keep going.
I don't have to do it just because you said it. I've slammed Ugnuts enough today. So I would say somebody paid $200 for it.
245. So your barometer is not far off.
I'm generally within 50.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for a mailer, but it does look nice displayed like that. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Last two are our figure of the month. So we have a 65B Leia Boushh, which is graded AFA 80, but the kicker is it's the Sukuda version. So on the back it has the Japanese Sukuda Return of the Jedi sticker on the bottom.
Right, and if you ever go back and listen to our Japanese episode, where
like episode 2, right?
Yes, 3 or 4. I went to Japan. I interviewed Aime Takeda. Only now do I realize that in Japan you're not supposed to ask yes or no questions because they will always say yes. It's very impolite to say no in Japanese culture. So I asked him, so they made Sukuda stickers for every character? He's like, yes. Chewbacca? Yes. Darth Vader? Yes. He said all of them. So I don't actually know what figures were made with Japanese Sukuda stickers.
Oh, no.
I listened to that interview. I'm like, ooh, I wish I knew that beforehand. But definitely Leia Boushh is one of the more common Sukuda stickers. So Sukuda was the distributor of Star Wars toys in Japan.
Right.
There is lots of good information about Japanese Star Wars toys, but just any yes or no question, you can just... Okay. Now, this is a great figure. This is actually rare. This is actually interesting. I will say 300.
275. So not far. That's a good guess.
I get really close with these.
Yeah, you're getting good. You're getting good at this. Okay, so the last item for this 3-pack is a first shot of the figure. It's described as being hand-painted. It has copyright markings, and it's sold on Facebook recently.
Wow, Steve, nice market expansion.
Yeah, Mike's getting into the Facebook realm of things with his sales data. So there's definitely stuff on there that's worth mentioning, just like this.
Yeah, it just makes me think like Mark Zuckerberg or I. We're just
oh God, stop it! Leave Mark alone, okay? Just stop.
Listen, it used to be it's a love that dare not speak its name. Now it's a love that dare speaketh its name on many Facebook groups. Anyways, me and the Zuck. First of all, let's say one more thing before we tell you the price of a first shot Leia Boushh. There used to be a huge collector of Leia Boushh items named Rasmus Hult.
Yes.
And Rasmus Hult is a great guy. He sold me the Power Droid Proof that I recently sold. He had an amazing run of Leia Boushh stuff, but he sold it out, and there isn't any super public collector who collects Leia Boushh.
Right.
I know that Brock said, he gave a name of somebody, but I don't know if that person wants to be outed as a Boushh collector. So I don't know that. So, anyways, I just wanted to say that we didn't really have any Super Boushh collectors, and this first shot probably came from him because he had like 7 or 8.
Shots. He had a crazy run on this figure, and in the show notes, I found an old Rebel Scum thread that a lot of that's in there. Just for reference, we'll throw that in the show notes too.
I mean, that guy had more Boushh than the 70s porno mag.
Oh boy, it's getting late.
What? How do you pronounce Boushh? Okay. Okay. First shot. Okay, so I get to get within 1,000 to be right here. I'm going to say 3,000.
900. Bargain.
Okay, well, at least I was wrong.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad you were wrong.
Well, 900 for a first shot. Wow, Steve.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Mike, for doing that. I don't think we had anything from Fantastic Pete.
Not this month, yeah.
But fortunately, we had the Lehmkuhls on, who have a very similar radio-ready voice. So, I feel like we have Pete in spirit here.
Yes.
It's always difficult when two people whose voices should not be listened to talk to people whose voices should be on the radio. All right, Steve. Well, I think it's time for feedback, and I don't really have that much feedback. How about you?
There isn't a lot. Not much. There's a little bit from Canada, if you want to get to that.
Sure. Let's get to... I would say that we generally are not getting a ton of feedback right now for the show. I don't know what that is. Do you have any ideas, Steve?
I don't know. Is it just that everyone is spread out so much? Is that? I mean, I think people are still... I think they're still listening, but yeah.
I think they are. And they could also be listening to the other podcast, The Vintage Rebellion. They came out with another episode. And I will say this, Steve. We are the Star Wars Collectors Archive podcast, right?
Right.
I'm not saying that we should have right of first refusal over everything that happens in the hobby, okay? But it would be nice if we had the right of first refusal for the goddamn Star Wars Collectors Archive. This is the second time that we've been scooped on our own site of people who wrote blog posts just posting and going over there. And the thing is, we don't like to talk about the same stuff that they do every month. Like, we try and switch it up because we don't want it to feel like the car wash at ESPN, like Steve says. So somebody who I used to consider a friend, Yehuda, went on the show to talk about Colombian Yuppie toys. And I'm sure it was a great article. I've read it, but I'm going to pretend like I didn't. I'm sure what he wrote is great. But he went on there to talk about it, so I feel like we don't really have much to say about that because we don't want to take away from them. So you should listen to him talk on the Vintage Rebellion podcast about the Yuppies, because I'm sure he did a great job on their podcast. Anyways, nothing against those guys. This is all on Yehuda. But he did tell me one thing, Steve.
Okay.
He told me that there's something that he's been holding back.
Yehuda's been holding back?
Yes, there's something about Yuppies that he has not told anybody. So if you don't know, Yuppies are toys that came out during the Dark Era, so after the Vintage Era, but before the Modern Era, in Colombia, and they're little tiny plastic unarticulated toys that are based off of Kenner toys.
Right.
And they come in many different colors, and it's hard to get all the colors there. Okay, so go to the Star Wars Collectors Archive blog and read his write-up. Okay. But we are going to add him to this call, and I'm going to call him. And I told him I wasn't going to warn him because I'm mad at him. But this is the thing. We're going to have a 5-minute limit because you can't start Yehuda because he'll just get going. Okay?
This is true.
I'm just going to call him at his house right now. We're going to see how this goes. Going to keep this recording. Is it recording still? All right. We'll see if it's dialing.
Think so?
We'll see if it's dialing. See if he answers. Probably won't answer. He's not answering. He's not answering. I can't believe it, Steve. He's not. Okay. This is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, is it even dialing? It's like I said. I don't hear it. Do you hear it?
Call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system. 7143021 is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
You trollop. You 2-bit, no good trollop. You go around spreading all your knowledge to everybody but the Star Wars Collectors Archive podcast. It's cool. It's cool. And then I confront you. And then what do you say? Oh, wasn't that serious? Oh, I save all the best stuff for you, honey. Don't worry, I bring it home. But what do you bring me? Nothing. I call, I get nothing. Steve over here is crying, okay?
Oh, I'm weeping.
He's really upset, okay? I had to break the news to him that you were on the other podcast instead of our podcast. It's just unacceptable. So we're gonna get a new Yehuda, okay? He's gonna be called Nehuda. And he's going to have a great collection, and he's going to hang out with my kids and stuff all the time, and he's going to have an awesome time, okay? And he'll be on the podcast, so there. So we're casting for a Nehuda, okay? So whoever, you know what? I think Ross Cuddy would be a great Nehuda. What do you think, Steve?
He's a good candidate, sure.
I think so. So anyways, you're officially fired from being Yehuda. Yeah, you're just going to be old Huda. No, that's not nice. I can't be that mean. So, anyways, Yehuda, I'm actually recording the show right now with Steve, and you said that you had something special to say, but I guess you'll say it next month, probably on the Bounty Hunters podcast, or on Galaxy of Toys, or the Force Cast, or I don't know, some other podcast. All right. Removed from group. Well, that was fun, Steve. I wonder if I'll keep that in.
Part of me really hopes you do. Because I have to say, whenever it has happened where you've left a message and it's up on the show, I don't know. Those are watershed moments in the Chive Cast, I think.
Well, it's fun. I mean, I know at one point Ron went on there to talk about the sculpts and stuff, but we'd already talked about it. But it wasn't like breaking a story over there, but whatever. We're all good friends. We're all, I get along with those guys now, so I'm not mad about that. It's more just the brand, Steve. I'm trying to build the brand.
I know.
Well, Space Freaks, since Steve and I recorded that voicemail, Yehuda did contact me with the new information about the Yuppies. Apparently, the same company that made Yuppies also made a snack called Cheetos, Chito. And what's interesting is they would also put little rubber figures in those as well, except they'd be from all different kinds of different lines, like He-Man or Woody Woodpecker, stuff like that. But the Star Wars ones only came in the snacks called Yuppies. So what he sent was a link to a commercial for Cheetos, in which you hear them talk about all the different kinds of characters that you can collect and have. So let's listen to that commercial.
Gallinazo, Andy Panda, Pingüi, El Pollo Carlos, todos los personajes del Pájaro Loco vienen ahora en los paquetes de Cheetos.
Y también los de He-Man.
Son lindas figuritas plásticas.
Para jugar y coleccionar.
Cheetos es de Jack Snack, sabor y frescura para confiar.
A neat thing about that is they say, para jugar y coleccionar. So, to play with and to collect. So, that's pretty fun. So, thank you, Yehuda, for that. And also, Space Freaks, I have some brand new news. So, there's going to be a new podcast on the feed. What happened was, Ron has released this just amazing article all about these undiscovered Ewoks. And he put it on the blog for the archive. And I said, hey, you should be on the show. And he's like, well, I'm going to be on the Vintage Rebellion next month. Not about that, but it might come up. And I kind of lost my mind a little bit, and I got really frustrated. And again, it's nothing against them. It's just, it's the Star Wars Collectors Archive blog. It's not the Vintage Rebellion blog, right? So I realized the problem is that, it's, as always, the problem is with me. It's not with anybody else. It's not really clear, like, when we're going to record something and what we care about. So we're announcing something brand new. It's called the Chive Cast Blog Log. We came up with that name. Arrested Development fans will understand the joke there, the half joke. So what it is every time there is a blog post that comes out from the Star Wars Collector's Archive, Steve and I are going to, or just me, I don't know which one, but we're going to interview the writer of that blog post. So that instead of missing Yehuda and having him go over to the other podcast, he would have just recorded a 10 to 15 minute thing about the article, a couple funny stories, and then put it out. And then it doesn't matter if he goes on other places because, we're not being scooped on our own content. And so look to your feed. Probably within the week that I release this, I'm going to be interviewing Ron about the undiscovered Ewoks. It's a real kick in the kink. So that is what's happening. So instead of complaining about it, we're doing something about it. So look for your feed for a Chive Cast blog logs. It's still funny to me. I wonder if it'll stop being funny. People who listen will probably know it will always be funny to me. So let's get back to the feedback with Steve. Okay,
all right.
So you said you had some Canadian information about Akbar.
Yes. Okay. So Scott, our good friend Scott, chimes in on Rebel Scum. He was happy about us kind of getting back to the normal routine with the figure of the month. So yeah, we're back, hopefully back on that track. But
although we haven't really talked about Boushh at all this episode, but that's okay.
Yeah. we're giving it a try. Okay, so what Scott had to chime in on, especially particular to Akbar, was that their Akbar mail-in offer was actually only available on cards as a sticker for the ESB and Return of the Jedi transition cards, which I thought was kind of neat. And that it also came late to Canada. It expired on August 1st, 1983. So it's just a slight, like many things, just a slight difference that is good to know about. So
wait, so it only came out on the transition cards?
Yeah. So you have the Empire Strikes Back cards that have the Return of the Jedi sticker affixed to the front, and then the Akbar offer is a sticker. It's a different version of the sticker. It doesn't have an image of the character. It just has the text, and then on the back it has the offer with the image of the figure stuck to the bottom.
Yeah, that's just amazing. I never realized.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense because, I mean, I actually did have a 47 back Chewbacca, except it's a transition card, so it's a 4-LOM offer with the Akbar offer over it, so it's like this cool double offer.
That's cool.
But yeah, that's the only way they got it was with the transition card. So really, if I collect 48Bs, I'm basically collecting Akbar stickers, so I need to collect transition cards.
I didn't want to break that to you that way, but that is kind of what I was thinking. This is kind of your next step.
I am going to say this, Steve. The ratio of rarity and coolness to price on the transition stickers is totally out of whack.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean they don't sell for that much. I don't think they usually go for over $1,000.
Mm.
And they're really rare and they're super cool.
Yeah, I mean totally. I mean, I just thinking, I don't remember seeing them all that often ever. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Well, I think that was a good. Good bit of feedback, and I think this has been a good show. So let's not draw it out. Wampa wampa.
Adios.
With its colorful Star Wars picture display set and